Welcome to The Sleepy Scientist. It's lovely to have you here. Before everything quiets down, where in the world are you watching from tonight? Are you tucked beneath a blanket, half listening in a dark room, resting on the sofa after a long day, or letting this play softly while the house settles around you? Wherever you are, I hope you feel comfortable, calm, and ready to wander gently into the hidden world beneath sleep. If you enjoy these slow scientific journeys and would like more of them, a like and subscribe helps this sleepy little channel keep drifting along. And to those already subscribed, thank you. Truly, your support is deeply appreciated, even if it is being appreciated in a very quiet, well-regulated, low heart rate sort of way. Now, tonight's topic may be about sleep, so in theory, it should help everyone relax. But there is a small risk that learning what the body gets up to after dark might make sleep seem slightly more impressive than expected. If that happens, at least there will be a better understanding of how the brain cleans itself, how memories are quietly sorted, why muscles repair, why dreams unfold, and why the body appears to run an entire night shift while pretending to do absolutely nothing. So let's begin, shall we? What happens inside your body while you sleep? And why is rest one of the busiest things you ever do? When the world grows quiet and the room begins to soften around you, it can seem as though sleep is a kind of disappearance. The eyes close, the muscles loosen, the day slips away. From the outside, the sleeping body may look almost still, as if someone has gently turned down the brightness of being alive. But sleep is not a shutdown. It is not the body switching off like a lamp beside the bed. It is a different state of life, just as organised as waking, but quieter, deeper, and in many ways more private. While awareness fades, the body keeps working with remarkable precision. The brain changes its rhythm. Hormones rise and fall. Immune signals move through tissues. Muscles relax and repair. Body temperature shifts. Breathing continues. The heart keeps its patient timing. Metabolism keeps adjusting the flow of energy from one cell to another. In other words, sleep is not the absence of activity. It is activity with the lights dimmed. During the day, waking life asks the body to look outward. The senses gather information. The eyes scan the world. The ears track voices, traffic, birdsong notifications, and the distant mysterious clatter from somewhere in the kitchen that nobody wants to investigate at midnight. The brain constantly predicts, reacts, remembers, chooses, and adjusts. Muscles hold posture. Stress hormones rise when needed. The digestive system responds to meals. The immune system watches for trouble. Even sitting still requires coordination, because being alive is never truly still. Then, as sleep approaches, the body begins to change direction. Attention loosens its grip on the outside world. Thoughts become less orderly. The boundary between deliberate thinking and drifting imagery starts to blur. This is drowsiness, the gentle borderland between waking and sleep. The brain is not yet fully asleep, but it is no longer handling the world with the same sharpness. Sounds may still be noticed, but they feel farther away. A thought may begin clearly, then dissolve halfway through, like ink spreading through water. From there, sleep usually moves into lighter sleep. In light sleep, awareness becomes easier to disturb, but the body is already entering a different biological mode. Brainwaves begin to slow. Muscle activity settles. The eyes stop moving in the alert, searching way they do during waking. Heart rate and breathing often become calmer. This stage can feel so light that a person woken from it may insist they were not asleep at all. The body, however, knows better. It has already begun the night's work. Deeper sleep comes later, and it is one of the most physically restorative parts of the night. In deep sleep, the brain produces slower, more synchronized electrical rhythms. These slow waves are not just a sign of quietness. They are part of a highly organized state in which the brain and body shift into repair, regulation, and restoration. It is often harder to wake someone from deep sleep, and if they are woken, they may feel heavy, confused, or temporarily misplaced in reality, like a person who has been returned from another planet, without proper paperwork. Deep sleep is especially important because it is linked with growth hormone release, tissue maintenance, immune function, and the stabilizing of certain kinds of memory. The body is not simply resting in a vague way. It is reallocating resources. It is turning attention inward. The same living system that spent the day responding to the outer world now begins to tend to itself. Then there is dreaming sleep, known scientifically as rapid eye movement sleep. This is the stage often associated with vivid dreams, although dreams can happen during other stages too. During rapid eye movement sleep, the brain can become surprisingly active, sometimes showing patterns that resemble waking in certain regions. The eyes move beneath the eyelids. Breathing and heart rate may become more variable. Many of the body's large voluntary muscles are temporarily inhibited, which helps prevent most dreams from being acted out. This is one of sleep's more considerate design features. Without it, bedrooms might require far more padding. Across a typical night, sleep moves through these states in repeated cycles. It does not stay in one place. It changes shape. Lighter sleep, deeper sleep, and rapid eye movement sleep return several times, with deep sleep tending to be more prominent earlier in the night, and dreaming sleep often becoming longer toward morning. This overall pattern is known as sleep architecture, and it is one of the key ideas in modern sleep science. Organizations such as the American Academy of Sleep Medicine have helped define and refine the way sleep stages are described in clinical sleep science. Sleep can be studied using tools that measure brain activity, eye movement, muscle tone, breathing, oxygen levels, and heart rhythms. These measurements show that sleep is not one smooth block of unconsciousness. It is a structured biological process with recognizable stages and patterns. This matters because each part of sleep appears to serve different but connected purposes. The body does not carry out one single nightly job, it performs many. Some processes help the brain organize memories, some help regulate emotion, some support immune defense, some adjust hormones involved in growth, appetite, stress, and metabolism. Some allow the nervous system to recalibrate. Some support physical repair in muscles, skin, and other tissues. Some help maintain the delicate balance of body temperature, blood pressure, breathing, and energy use. The sleeping body is therefore not like an abandoned house after dark. It is more like a city at night. The streets may be quieter, the windows may be dark, but cleaning crews are moving, deliveries are happening, engineers are checking systems, signals are being sent beneath the surface. Somewhere, a very tired committee of brain cells is deciding which memories deserve long-term storage and which ones can probably be released, such as the exact shape of a sandwich seen briefly 3 Thursdays ago. This is the strange truth hidden inside an ordinary night. When consciousness fades, the body does not stop being intelligent. It simply changes its priorities. Instead of walking, speaking, choosing, scanning, reacting, and performing, it begins to maintain. It sorts, it cleans, it repairs, it regulates, it lowers some systems and raises others. It protects the future waking self by doing work that the waking self rarely notices. That is why sleep can feel like nothing from the inside and still be filled with activity from the body's point of view. The quiet is real, but it is not empty. Beneath the blanket, beneath the stillness, beneath the slow breath and softened face, the body is carrying out one of the most important routines in biology. After the outside world goes quiet, the inner world continues. And what happens inside the body while sleeping is not a pause in life, but one of the ways life keeps itself going. Long before sleep arrives, the brain has already begun measuring the day. It does not usually wait until the exact moment the head touches the pillow to decide whether rest would be a good idea. That decision has been quietly forming for hours, shaped by chemistry, light, timing, habit, and the simple fact that being awake is surprisingly hard work. Every hour of wakefulness leaves a faint biological trace. The brain spends the day using energy, sending signals, maintaining attention, regulating emotion, moving the body, reading the world, and trying not to think about every embarrassing thing ever said at exactly the wrong moment. As this waking activity continues, a chemical called adenosine gradually builds up in the brain. Adenosine is one of the key signals involved in sleep pressure, which is the growing biological need for sleep. The longer a person stays awake, the more sleep pressure tends to increase. It is not exactly tiredness in the emotional sense, although it often feels like tiredness. It is more like a slowly rising internal weight, telling the brain that it has been running for a while and will eventually need to shift into a different state. Adenosine forms as part of normal energy use. Cells use a molecule called adenosine triphosphate to power their work, and as energy is used, adenosine is one of the byproducts that can accumulate. In the brain, higher adenosine activity is associated with increasing sleepiness. This is one reason a long day can make the body feel as though gravity has become slightly more personal by evening. Caffeine works partly because it blocks adenosine receptors. It does not remove the underlying sleep pressure in the way sleep does. It simply prevents some of the adenosine signal from being felt for a while. The message is still being written. Caffeine just stands in front of the notice board wearing a suspiciously confident expression. When the effect wears off, the need for sleep may become noticeable again, but sleep is not controlled by sleep pressure alone. The body also has an internal timing system called the circadian rhythm. This rhythm helps coordinate many daily cycles, including alertness, body temperature, hormone release, digestion, metabolism, and sleep timing. The word circadian refers to a rhythm that runs on roughly a 24-hour cycle, though the body's inner clock needs regular adjustment from the outside world to stay aligned with the day and night around it. At the center of this timing system is a tiny region of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. It sits in the hypothalamus, just above where the optic nerves cross. The suprachiasmatic nucleus is often described as the body's master clock, not because it controls every cell directly like a strict little manager with a clipboard, but because it helps coordinate timing signals across the body. Many organs and tissues have their own local clocks, yet the suprachiasmatic nucleus helps keep the whole system broadly synchronized. This is where light becomes deeply important. Light enters the eyes and does more than create vision. Some specialized cells in the retina are sensitive to light in a way that helps regulate the body clock. These cells are called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. They contain a light-sensitive pigment called melanopsin, which is especially responsive to blue-enriched daylight. These cells send signals along a pathway to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, giving the brain information about whether the outside world is bright or dark. In the morning, light helps tell the brain that the day has begun. This can support alertness, shift circadian timing, and help regulate the release of hormones across the day. In the evening, dimmer light allows the body to move more naturally toward biological night. Bright light late at night, especially from overhead lighting or screens held close to the face, can send a confusing message to the brain's clock. The body may be tired, but part of the timing system is still receiving hints that the day is not quite finished. Very rude of modern life, really. Lamps have no manners. One of the hormones closely tied to this rhythm is melatonin. Melatonin is released by the pineal gland, a small gland located deep within the brain. As darkness increases, melatonin levels usually rise, helping signal to the body that biological night has arrived. It is often called the sleep hormone, but that phrase can be a little misleading. Melatonin does not simply knock the body out. It is not a natural sleeping tablet in the dramatic sense. It is more like a time signal, a quiet announcement that the internal evening has begun. Melatonin helps prepare the conditions for sleep, especially when it is released at the right time within the body's circadian rhythm. It works alongside many other signals rather than acting alone. Sleep still depends on accumulated sleep pressure, the state of the nervous system, behavior, stress, temperature, light exposure, and the body's broader rhythm. Melatonin may open a gate, but it does not drag the body through it by the ankles. This combination of sleep pressure and circadian rhythm was famously described by the sleep researcher Alexander Borbély in his two-process model of sleep regulation. In this model, sleep is shaped mainly by two interacting forces. One is the homeostatic sleep drive, which builds the longer a person stays awake and decreases during sleep. The other is the circadian process, which follows a daily rhythm and helps determine when the body is biologically prepared for sleep or alertness. The beauty of Borbély's model is that it explains something familiar. A person may feel tired after being awake for many hours, but if the circadian rhythm is strongly promoting alertness, sleep can still feel oddly difficult. This is why someone can be exhausted and yet strangely awake late at night, especially after stress, bright light, irregular schedules, or too much evening stimulation. It is also why napping late in the day can reduce sleep pressure enough to make bedtime less smooth, even though the clock says sleep would be sensible. The brain does not always obey the clock on the wall. It prefers its own internal paperwork. When these two processes line up well, sleep becomes easier. Adenosine has built enough pressure. The circadian rhythm has moved into its night phase. Melatonin has begun signaling darkness. Body temperature is preparing to drop. Alerting signals gradually soften. The brain becomes less committed to the outside world and more willing to drift inward. This means sleep begins before sleep itself. It begins in the slow rise of adenosine during the day. It begins in morning light reaching the eyes. It begins in the suprachiasmatic nucleus keeping time. It begins in the pineal gland preparing melatonin as evening deepens. It begins in the quiet negotiation between chemistry and rhythm, between the pressure to rest and the timing that tells the body when rest makes sense. By the time the eyes close, the decision has often been forming for a long while. Sleep is not simply a switch flipped at bedtime. It is a biological alignment, a gradual meeting of need and timing. The body has been listening to the day, measuring the light, counting the hours of wakefulness, and preparing the conditions for the hidden work of night. Once the brain has gathered enough sleep pressure, and the body's inner clock has begun to lean toward night, sleep does not arrive as one flat, unchanging state. It may feel that way from the inside because the sleeping mind is not usually keeping a neat record of its own movements. But beneath awareness, the night has a shape. It has depth, rhythm, return, and variation. The body does not simply fall asleep and remain in the same dark room until morning. It travels. Across a typical night, sleep unfolds in repeated cycles. These cycles usually last roughly 90 minutes, though they can vary from person to person, and from one night to another. Within each cycle, the body moves through lighter sleep, deeper sleep, and rapid eye movement sleep. Then the pattern begins again, not as a perfect copy, but as a changing sequence, with different stages becoming more or less prominent as the night goes on. The broadest division is between non-rapid eye movement sleep and rapid eye movement sleep. Non-rapid eye movement sleep makes up much of the night, especially earlier on. It includes the lighter stages where the body first slips away from waking, and the deeper stages where brain activity becomes slower and more synchronized. Rapid eye movement sleep, by contrast, is the stage most famously linked with vivid dreaming, shifting eye movements, and an active brain inside a body that is mostly prevented from acting out its dreams. In light, non-rapid eye movement sleep, the body is in a kind of gentle departure lounge between waking and deeper rest. Awareness fades, but it may not vanish completely. Sounds can still tug at the mind. A door closing, a dog moving somewhere in the house, or the highly dramatic collapse of one tiny object on a shelf can still pull someone back toward waking. Brain activity begins to slow compared with alert wakefulness. Muscles relax, the eyes become still. The body is no longer fully engaged with the outside world, but it has not yet descended into its deepest quiet. As sleep deepens, the brain begins producing slower electrical patterns. This deeper, non-rapid eye movement sleep is often called slow-wave sleep because large groups of neurons shift into slower, more coordinated rhythms. This is not the brain becoming lazy. It is the brain changing mode. Deep sleep is linked with physical restoration, immune activity, hormone release, and memory processes. It is also the stage from which waking can feel most disorienting. Someone pulled from deep sleep may sit up looking as if they have been summoned from an ancient cave and asked to solve a tax form. During deep sleep, the body is often at its most outwardly calm. Heart rate and breathing tend to become steadier. Blood pressure may fall, muscle activity is reduced, but not in the same special way seen during rapid eye movement sleep. The body is still capable of movement, and some sleep behaviors, such as sleepwalking, are more likely to arise from deep non-rapid eye movement sleep than from vivid dreaming sleep. This can feel surprising because deep sleep seems so still, but sleep is full of these quiet complications. Rapid eye movement sleep is different. In this state, the brain becomes more active in certain ways, sometimes resembling waking more than deep sleep does. The eyes move beneath the eyelids, which gives the stage its name. Breathing can become more irregular. Heart rate may vary. Dreams often become more vivid, emotional, and story-like. At the same time, the brainstem helps suppress most voluntary muscle activity, creating a temporary muscle atonia that keeps the body from fully acting out dream movements. The mind may be running through a strange forest, having a conversation with a long-forgotten school teacher, or trying to find a train platform that has turned into a swimming pool, while the body very sensibly remains in bed. The discovery of rapid eye movement sleep as a distinct sleep state was one of the turning points in modern sleep science. In the early 1950s, Nathaniel Kleitman and Eugene Aserinsky identified regular periods of rapid eye movement during sleep and connected them with dreaming. Their work helped show that sleep was not simply a uniform state of unconsciousness. It had internal structure, it had stages, it had measurable patterns. William Dement later became one of the major figures in developing sleep research, helping establish sleep medicine as a serious scientific field. Alan Rechtschaffen also played an important role in the standardization of sleep staging, helping create systems for classifying sleep based on brain waves, eye movements, and muscle tone. Thanks to this kind of work, researchers and clinicians could begin to describe the sleeping night with far more precision. Sleep was no longer just something people did after becoming tired. It became a landscape that could be mapped. This map matters because the order of sleep is not random. In the first part of the night, deep non-rapid eye movement sleep tends to dominate. This makes sense when sleep pressure is strongest. After many hours of wakefulness, the brain appears to prioritize deep, slow wave sleep. The the kind most closely associated with that heavy restorative descent. The body seems to take care of some of its deepest maintenance early, like a careful household doing the most important cleaning before anyone has a chance to make a mess again. As the night continues, deep sleep usually becomes shorter, while rapid eye movement sleep periods often grow longer. Toward morning, dreams may become more extended and easier to remember, partly because rapid eye movement sleep is more common in the later cycles, and partly because waking from it makes dream recall more likely. This is why a person may wake with a vivid dream just before morning, even if the earlier parts of the night passed in complete darkness. The pattern is not perfectly smooth. Sleep can include brief awakenings, shifts in position, tiny disturbances, and small returns toward lighter stages. Many of these are forgotten almost immediately. A person may believe they slept in one continuous block, while the brain actually moved through several cycles and brief transitions. The sleeping self is not an accurate historian. It is more like a night watchman who occasionally misplaces the notebook. The important point is that sleep is organised. It is shaped by the timing systems that prepared the body for rest, but once it begins, it develops its own inner rhythm. The body moves through lighter sleep, deeper sleep, and dreaming sleep because different biological tasks appear to be supported by different states. Some stages are better suited to physical restoration and slow neural rhythms. Others are more strongly associated with dreaming, emotional processing, and flexible brain activity. So sleep is not a simple blank space between evening and morning. It is a carefully patterned journey through changing states of body and brain. The eyes may be closed, the room may be still, and the outside world may have faded. But inside, the night is moving. It rises and falls through cycles, deepens and lightens, quiets the body, stirs the dreaming brain, and carries the sleeper through an internal landscape that has been studied, measured, and still remains quietly astonishing. As the night moves through its repeating cycles, the sleeping brain begins one of its most delicate tasks. It starts sorting the day. Not in the neat, conscious way someone might sort papers on a desk with tidy piles and a hopeful cup of tea nearby, but through patterns of neural activity that quietly reshape what the brain keeps, strengthens, softens, and lets fade. During waking life, the brain receives far more information than it could ever preserve in full detail. Every room entered, every face glanced at, every sentence heard, every texture touched, every small decision made, every passing worry, every background noise, every object briefly noticed and immediately forgotten, all of it passes through the nervous system in some form. If the brain stored everything with equal importance, memory would become less like a useful library and more like a garage where every receipt, pebble, old charger, and mysterious spare screw has been kept forever just in case. Instead, the brain must choose. Some memories matter because they contain facts. Some matter because they carry emotion. Some help build skills. Some help map places. Some connect to unfinished problems. Some are simply the mental dust of ordinary experience. Sleep appears to help with this enormous sorting process, separating what may be useful from what can safely drift into the background. A central part of this story is the hippocampus. The hippocampus is a curved structure buried deep within the temporal lobes of the brain, and it plays a crucial role in forming new memories, especially memories for events, places, and facts. It can be thought of as a temporary memory hub, helping bind together the different features of an experience: the sound of a voice, the layout of a room, the meaning of a conversation, and the emotion attached to it may involve many different brain regions. But the hippocampus helps link these pieces into something that can later be recalled as a memory. The cerebral cortex, the outer folded layer of the brain, is also central to memory. Over time, many memories become more distributed across cortical networks. The cortex is not a single storage cupboard where memories are placed on shelves, but a vast network of regions involved in perception, language, movement, emotion, meaning, and association. A memory becomes stable not by being placed in one little box, but by being represented across patterns of connection. This is wonderfully efficient, though it does mean the brain's filing system would probably not pass a normal office inspection. The importance of the hippocampus became especially clear through foundational memory research involving the famous patient known as H.M., whose real name was Henry Molaison. After brain surgery in the 1950s to treat severe epilepsy, he was left unable to form many kinds of new long-term memories. The neuropsychologist Brenda Milner studied him extensively, and her work helped show that the hippocampus and nearby medial temporal lobe structures are essential for forming new declarative memories, meaning memories that can be consciously recalled, such as facts and events. This research changed the understanding of memory. It showed that memory is not one single ability spread evenly throughout the brain. Different kinds of memory rely on different systems. A person may struggle to remember new events while still being able to learn certain motor skills. The brain does not have one memory button. It has many overlapping memory processes, which is both scientifically elegant and slightly inconvenient for anyone who simply wants to remember where they put their keys. Sleep supports memory through a process called memory consolidation. Memory consolidation is the gradual stabilizing and strengthening of new memories after they are first formed. A new experience can begin as something fragile, easily disrupted, and dependent on recent patterns of brain activity. Over time, and especially with the help of sleep, that memory can become more durable. One important idea is that the sleeping brain reactivates patterns linked to recent experiences. During certain stages of sleep, especially slow-wave sleep, the brain may replay aspects of waking activity. This does not usually mean replaying the day like a little cinema in the head. It is more subtle than that. Neural networks that were active during learning can become active again, helping strengthen connections and transfer information between the hippocampus and the cortex. The memory is being rehearsed below awareness, without the sleeper needing to sit up and revise anything, which is considerate. Slow-wave sleep seems particularly important for certain kinds of factual and spatial memory. Factual memory includes knowledge such as names, meanings, and information learned during the day. Spatial memory involves understanding places, routes, and layouts. The hippocampus is especially important here, because it helps represent relationships between things, including where events happened and how one part of an environment connects to another. During deep sleep, the slow rhythms of the cortex bursts of activity in the thalamus called sleep spindles, and hippocampal activity appear to coordinate in ways that support consolidation. Rapid eye movement sleep appears to contribute differently. It is often associated with emotional processing, associative thinking, and the flexible linking of ideas. During rapid eye movement sleep, the brain is active in a distinctive way. Emotional regions such as the amygdala may be strongly engaged, while parts of the prefrontal cortex involved in strict logic and self-monitoring may be less active. This may help explain why dreams can feel emotionally intense and narratively odd, as though the brain has handed the script to a poet, a child, and a raccoon in a waistcoat. The distinction between slow-wave sleep and rapid eye movement sleep is not absolute. Memory is complex and different stages likely work together rather than performing entirely separate jobs. But the general pattern is useful. Deep non-rapid eye movement sleep seems especially important for stabilizing certain memories and supporting the transfer of information from the hippocampus toward longer-term cortical networks. Rapid eye movement sleep may help integrate memories with emotion, meaning, creativity, and existing knowledge. This is where the shape of the night begins to matter. Sleep architecture is not just a biological curiosity. The cycling between lighter sleep, deep sleep, and rapid eye movement sleep may allow the brain to perform different forms of mental housekeeping at different times. One stage may help strengthen a newly learned fact. Another may help soften the emotional sharpness of an experience. Another may help connect a new idea to older memories, creating associations that were not obvious during waking. In this sense, the sleeping brain resembles a library after closing time. During the day, visitors have arrived, books have been pulled from shelves, notes have been left on tables, and some very important documents have somehow ended up beside the biscuits. At night, the doors close and the quiet work begins. Some things are shelved carefully, some are repaired, some are cross-referenced, some are quietly discarded. The next morning, the person may not remember the work being done, but the mind is a little more organized because of it. Sleep does not preserve every detail of the day, and it should not. Forgetting is not always a failure. It is part of how the brain stays usable. The goal is not to remember everything, but to keep what matters, integrate what helps, and reduce the endless noise that would otherwise crowd the mind. Beneath the stillness of sleep, the brain is not simply resting from experience, it is reshaping experience into memory. Somewhere in the quiet architecture of sleep, after memories have begun to loosen and reorganize, the mind starts to do something even stranger. It begins to dream, not always in grand cinematic stories and not always in ways that can be remembered in the morning, but often enough and vividly enough that dreaming has become one of the most familiar mysteries in human life. Dreams are a normal feature of sleep. They are not rare accidents, and they are not signs that the brain has briefly lost its grip on reality in some alarming way. Dreaming appears to be part of the ordinary activity of the sleeping mind. It is especially associated with rapid eye movement sleep, the stage in which the eyes move beneath the eyelids. The brain becomes highly active in certain regions, and the body's large voluntary muscles are mostly kept still. But dreams can also occur during non-rapid eye movement sleep. They may simply feel different, often less vivid, less emotional, less story-like, or more like fragments of thought than full dream worlds. Rapid eye movement sleep has a particularly important place in dream research because it is so strongly linked with vivid dreams. In this state, the brain can become active in ways that partly resemble waking. The sleeper may see places that are not there, hear voices that do not exist in the room, feel fear, wonder, embarrassment, relief, or confusion, and accept all kinds of impossible events as perfectly reasonable. A person may calmly attend a meeting at the bottom of the ocean, recognize a childhood home that looks nothing like any house ever lived in, or discover that a train has become a library and somehow feel that this is normal public transport behavior. The French neuroscientist Michel Jouvet made major contributions to the study of rapid eye movement sleep. His work helped show that rapid eye movement sleep was not simply ordinary sleep with dreams added on top. It was a distinct biological state, involving particular patterns of brain activity and a remarkable suppression of muscle movement. Jouvet studied the brain mechanisms involved in rapid eye movement sleep and helped clarify why the dreaming brain can be internally active while the body remains mostly still. This temporary muscle paralysis, often called rapid eye movement atonia, helps prevent the sleeper from acting out most dream movements. That detail alone reveals something important. Dreaming is not just a vague mental mist drifting through sleep. It is part of a coordinated body state. The brain changes its activity. The eyes move. The muscles are inhibited. Breathing and heart rate may become more variable. The sleeping body is protecting itself while the mind moves through scenes, emotions, and images that may have little respect for ordinary physics or household furniture. The question of why dreams happen is still open in many ways. Science has strong ideas, useful evidence, and serious theories, but it does not offer one simple explanation that covers every dream. Dreams may be involved in emotional processing, memory integration, threat simulation, creativity, and associative thinking. These are all genuine areas of dream research, but it is important to be careful. There is no good reason to claim that every dream has one fixed hidden meaning, as if the brain were sending secret postcards written entirely in symbols. A dream about losing teeth does not automatically mean one universal thing for every person. Sometimes the sleeping mind may be processing emotion. Sometimes it may be recombining memory. Sometimes it may simply be producing a strange little theatre performance with very poor continuity. Emotional memory is one of the most interesting areas. Dreams often carry strong feelings, even when their stories are odd. This may be partly because emotional brain regions can be active during dreaming. The amygdala, which is involved in detecting emotional significance and responding to fear or threat, can show heightened activity during rapid eye movement sleep. This helps explain why dreams can feel so intense. A dream may not make sense in daylight terms, but inside it, the emotion can feel completely convincing. At the same time, parts of the prefrontal cortex, especially regions involved in careful reasoning, self-monitoring, and critical judgment, may be less active during rapid eye movement sleep than during waking. This may help explain why dream logic is so flexible. In a dream, a person may accept impossible changes in place, time, identity, and cause without stopping to question them. The usual inner editor is quieter. The part of the brain that might normally say, "Hang on, this staircase was not a rainforest 5 seconds ago," is not fully on duty. The hippocampus also remains relevant because dreams often draw from memory. They may borrow fragments of recent experience, old places, familiar people, worries, desires, and pieces of knowledge. But dreams do not usually replay memories exactly. They recombine them. A face from one part of life may appear in a location from another. A feeling from yesterday may attach itself to a scene from childhood. A small concern may become a dramatic image. The sleeping brain seems able to loosen the usual boundaries between memories and associations. Visual association areas of the brain are also involved in generating the rich imagery of dreams. These areas help create the sense of seeing dream scenes, even though the eyes are closed and the outside room is dark. The visual world of a dream is produced internally. It is not coming through the eyes in the usual way. The brain is building an experience from within, using memory, emotion, imagination, and neural activity to create a temporary reality that can feel astonishingly real while it lasts. The psychologist and sleep researcher Rosalind Cartwright studied dreaming in connection with emotion, depression, and psychological adjustment. Her work helped develop the idea that dreams may play a role in mood regulation and emotional adaptation, especially after difficult experiences. This does not mean dreams are magical therapy, or that every unpleasant emotion is neatly solved by morning. The brain is not a tiny overnight counselor with a clipboard and a calming cardigan, but sleep, and dreaming in particular, may help emotional memories become less raw, more integrated, and less disruptive over time. Another idea is threat simulation. Some researchers have proposed that dreams may allow the mind to rehearse threatening situations in a safe internal environment. This could help explain why danger, pursuit, embarrassment, loss, or conflict are common dream themes. The dreaming brain may be testing possible responses, not in a perfectly realistic way, but through rough emotional simulations. Again, this does not explain every dream. It is one possible function among several. and dreams are likely too varied to be reduced to one purpose. Creativity is another serious area of interest. Because dreaming loosens normal associations, it can sometimes bring together ideas that waking thought keeps separate. The brain may connect images, concepts, and memories in unusual ways. Most dreams are not masterpieces. Many are more like experimental theatre performed by a committee that forgot the script. But the associative freedom of dreaming may help the mind explore combinations that would be less likely during ordinary waking thought. This is where dreaming connects back to the brain's nightly sorting. Sleep does not simply file memories away as if placing documents into labelled folders. It also changes their relationships. It weakens some connections, strengthens others, softens emotional edges, and allows memories to brush against one another in unexpected ways. In dreams, the sleeping brain may not be organising experience in a clean straight line. It may be loosening it, testing it, recombining it, and quietly changing how it feels. So dreaming is not just entertainment played behind closed eyelids. It is part of the active sleeping body and brain. It belongs to the same night that sorts memory, regulates emotion, protects movement, and prepares the waking mind for another day. Dreams may be strange, but they are not meaningless simply because they are strange. They are one of the ways the brain shows that sleep is not emptiness. It is an inner world at work, softly lit, emotionally vivid, and only partly governed by the rules of waking life. While the sleeping brain is sorting memories, softening emotions, and building strange dream worlds from fragments of experience, another quieter process may be taking place beneath the surface. It is less theatrical than dreaming, less familiar than memory, and far less likely to be remembered in the morning. But it may be one of the most important reasons sleep matters so deeply to the brain. The brain appears to clean itself while sleeping. This does not mean there are tiny brushes moving between neurons, although that would be charming in a deeply impractical way. The real process is fluid-based. It involves the movement of cerebrospinal fluid, the clear liquid that surrounds the brain and spinal cord, through spaces in and around brain tissue. This system is known as the glymphatic system, a name that combines glial cells with the lymphatic system. Glial cells are support cells in the nervous system, and the lymphatic system is the body's wider drainage and immune transport network. The brain does not have a classic lymphatic drainage system in quite the same way as many other tissues, so the glymphatic system offers one explanation for how waste products may be cleared from the brain's delicate environment. A major figure in this field is Maiken Nedergaard, whose research team at the University of Rochester helped identify and describe the glymphatic system in animal studies. Their work suggested that the brain has a specialized way of moving fluid through tissue, helping wash away metabolic waste that builds up during waking activity. This research did not make sleep suddenly important. Sleep was already known to matter, but it added a vivid new idea. During sleep, the brain may be entering a more favorable state for physical housekeeping. The brain is a busy organ. Even though it is only a small fraction of body weight, it uses a large share of the body's energy. Neurons constantly exchange chemical signals, maintain electrical gradients, recycle molecules, and support the networks that allow thought, sensation, memory, emotion, and movement. All of this activity produces metabolic byproducts. Like any active tissue, the brain needs ways to clear what it no longer needs. A city that never collected rubbish would have a problem fairly quickly. The brain, being rather more delicate than a city and much less fond of wheelie bins, needs a more biological solution. Cerebrospinal fluid is central to this story. This fluid cushions the brain, helps maintain its chemical environment, and appears to move through spaces around blood vessels and through brain tissue. In glymphatic clearance, Cerebrospinal fluid is thought to help carry away waste products from the spaces between cells. The movement is supported by astrocytes, star-shaped glial cells that help regulate the brain's environment. These cells have water channels called aquaporin 4, which appear to play a role in fluid movement through the brain. One of the most striking findings from early glymphatic research was that this clearance seemed to increase during sleep. In animal studies, the spaces between brain cells appeared to expand during sleep, allowing fluid to move more freely. This does not mean the brain becomes empty or loose in a dramatic sense. It means that tiny changes in the space between cells may make waste clearance more efficient. When the brain shifts into certain sleep states, its chemistry, electrical rhythms, and cellular environment all change. These changes may help create conditions where fluid can move through tissue more effectively. Deep sleep may be especially important here. During slow-wave sleep, the brain produces large, slow, coordinated electrical rhythms. These waves are associated with reduced conscious processing and a shift away from the busy, outward-facing activity of waking. Research suggests that these slow brain rhythms may be linked with changes in blood flow and cerebrospinal fluid movement. The sleeping brain is not simply quieter. Its quietness has structure, and that structure may help fluid pulse through the brain in ways that support clearance. This is where the idea of sleep as restoration becomes more physical. It is not only that the mind feels better after rest, or that memory works more smoothly. The actual environment around brain cells may be refreshed. Waste products that accumulated during waking hours may be moved away more effectively. The brain may use the lowered demands of sleep to do maintenance that would be harder to perform while fully awake and busy interpreting the world. Two waste-related proteins often discussed in this area are amyloid beta and tau. Amyloid beta is a protein fragment that can accumulate into plaques in the brains of people with Alzheimer's disease. Tau is a protein that helps stabilize internal structures inside neurons, but in certain disease processes it can become abnormal and form tangles. Both amyloid beta and tau are important in neurodegenerative disease research. Sleep has been linked to the clearance and regulation of these proteins, but it is important to speak carefully. Poor sleep is associated with changes in amyloid beta and tau in some research, and the glymphatic system may help explain part of that connection. But sleep alone does not determine whether someone develops a complex disease such as Alzheimer's disease. Neurodegenerative diseases involve age, genetics, vascular health, inflammation, metabolism, environment, and many other factors. Good sleep is important, but it is not a magical shield. Biology is rarely that tidy, which is slightly inconsiderate of it. Still, the connection is meaningful. If the brain uses sleep to support waste clearance, then repeated disruption of sleep could interfere with one of the brain's natural maintenance systems. This helps explain why sleep is now studied not only as a behavioral state, but as a major part of brain health. The sleeping brain is not merely inactive, it may be tending to its own chemical landscape. This also connects back to memory. Earlier, sleep appeared as a librarian, sorting, strengthening, softening, and reorganizing the experiences of the day. Now it appears as something closer to a careful night cleaner, washing through the spaces between cells and helping remove the biological leftovers of activity. These two images belong together. The brain is not only preserving what matters, it may also be clearing away what does not belong. In waking life, the brain is lit by sensation and thought. It builds the world moment by moment, holds conversations, solves problems, remembers faces, watches for danger, and occasionally spends far too long wondering why it walked into a room. During sleep, some of that outward work is reduced. The brain turns inward, and part of that inward turn may involve maintenance at the most physical level. So, inside the sleeping body, the The brain is not just dreaming. It is not just filing memories. It is also moving fluid, shifting its cellular environment, and supporting the clearance of waste from the tissue that makes waking thought possible. The night is not empty. It is rinsed through with quiet work. And somewhere beneath the softness of sleep, the brain is caring for itself in the dark. While the brain is sorting memories and washing through its hidden spaces, the rest of the body is also changing its rhythm. Sleep is not only a state of the nervous system, it is a state of chemical timing. All through the night, hormones rise, fall, pause, pulse, and shift their influence from one tissue to another. They help the body decide what to repair, what to store, what to release, what to quiet, and what to prepare for morning. Hormones are chemical messengers. They are released by glands and tissues, carried through the blood, and received by cells that have the right receptors to respond to them. Some act quickly, others work more slowly, some follow daily rhythms, rising and falling across the 24-hour cycle. Sleep changes the timing of many of these signals, which is one reason a night of rest affects far more than alertness. It touches growth, stress regulation, appetite, blood sugar, reproduction, immune function, body temperature, and tissue repair. One of the clearest examples is growth hormone. Despite its name, growth hormone is not only important for children and teenagers. In adults, it still helps support tissue maintenance, protein synthesis, fat metabolism, muscle repair, bone health, and normal cellular renewal. Growth hormone is released by the pituitary gland, a small but influential gland at the base of the brain. Its release often happens in pulses, and one of the strongest pulses tends to occur during deep sleep, especially earlier in the night. This is one reason deep sleep has such a physically restorative reputation. The body is not simply lying still and hoping for the best. During deep sleep, when brain waves slow and the body becomes harder to wake, growth hormone can rise and help tissues maintain themselves. It supports the building and repair of proteins, which are essential for muscle, skin, organs, enzymes, and many cellular structures. If the body were a quiet workshop at night, growth hormone would be one of the supervisors gently encouraging the repair crew to get on with it, preferably without waking the person who owns the workshop. Growth hormone does not work alone. No hormone does. The endocrine system is more like an orchestra than a set of solo instruments. Signals from the hypothalamus influence the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland influences other glands. The thyroid, adrenal glands, pancreas, ovaries, testes, fat tissue, digestive system, and many other organs take part in the wider chemical conversation. Sleep changes the background rhythm of that conversation, making certain signals more prominent at certain times and quieter at others. Cortisol is another important hormone in this nightly pattern. Cortisol is often called a stress hormone, which is true but incomplete. It helps the body respond to stress, but it also supports normal metabolism, blood pressure regulation, immune balance, and energy availability. Cortisol is released by the adrenal glands, which sit above the kidneys, and it follows a strong daily rhythm in most people. Cortisol is usually lower during the early part of sleep, when the body is entering its deeper restorative phase. Then, as morning approaches, cortisol begins to rise. This rise is part of the body's preparation for waking. It helps increase alertness, mobilize energy, and support the transition from the sleeping state back into daytime activity. In a well-timed rhythm, cortisol is not the enemy. It is part of the morning opening of the body's internal curtains. Problems can arise when this rhythm becomes disturbed. Stress, irregular sleep, shift work, bright light at night, illness, and other pressures can affect the timing and pattern of cortisol release. If cortisol is high when the body is trying to settle, sleep may become lighter or harder to enter. If the rhythm is misaligned, waking may feel heavy and unsteady. The hormone itself is not bad. The timing matters. Biology often comes down to timing, which is inconvenient for anyone who hoped the body might accept a vague schedule and good intentions. The sleep researcher Eve Van Couter has been especially influential in studying the relationship between sleep, metabolism, glucose regulation, and endocrine rhythms. Her work has helped show that restricting sleep can affect how the body handles glucose and insulin, linking sleep not just to tiredness but to the regulation of energy. This does not mean one poor night causes a lasting metabolic disaster. The body is resilient. But repeated insufficient sleep can push chemical systems away from their healthiest rhythms. Blood sugar regulation is one important part of this. Insulin, released by the pancreas, helps move glucose from the blood into cells. During sleep, the body is not eating, yet it still needs a steady supply of fuel for the brain and other organs. The liver helps manage this by storing and releasing glucose as needed. Sleep timing and sleep quality influence how well this system works. When sleep is repeatedly shortened or fragmented, insulin sensitivity can be affected, meaning cells may respond less efficiently to insulin. Appetite hormones are also influenced by sleep. Leptin and ghrelin are two of the best known. Leptin is produced largely by fat tissue and helps signal energy sufficiency, contributing to feelings of fullness over time. Ghrelin is produced mainly in the stomach and is often described as a hunger-signaling hormone. Studies have found that insufficient sleep can reduce leptin, increase ghrelin, or otherwise alter appetite regulation in ways that may make hunger feel stronger and food cues more tempting. This should be understood carefully. Human appetite is not controlled by two hormones alone, and sleep is not a simple weight control switch. Food choices, stress, activity, genetics, environment, emotions, culture, medication, health conditions, and daily routines all matter. But sleep is part of the system. When it is disrupted, the body's signals around hunger, fullness, reward, and energy may become harder to interpret. The result can feel less like a calm internal conversation and more like the stomach has gained access to a microphone. Sleep also interacts with reproductive hormones. In men, testosterone follows a daily rhythm and is influenced by sleep duration and quality. In women, sleep can interact with hormonal changes across the menstrual cycle, pregnancy, and menopause. These relationships are complex because reproductive hormones also influence sleep in return. Estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, luteinizing hormone, and follicle-stimulating hormone all belong to wider rhythms that connect the brain, glands, and body. Sleep is both shaped by these signals and helps support their regulation. The key idea is that hormones turn sleep into a whole-body event. The brain may be cleaning itself and reorganizing memory, but at the same time the body is adjusting growth signals, stress rhythms, appetite messages, blood sugar control, reproductive timing, tissue repair, and immune communication. These processes are not isolated. Cortisol affects metabolism and inflammation. Growth hormone supports tissue maintenance. Insulin helps regulate fuel. Leptin and ghrelin influence appetite. Melatonin signals biological night. The body is not a collection of separate machines. It is one deeply connected system. This wider chemical coordination helps explain why sleep affects how a person feels the next day. Poor sleep can make thinking foggy, but it can also make hunger sharper, stress more reactive, muscles heavier, skin duller, and energy less steady. Good sleep does not guarantee perfect health or perfect mood, because bodies are not vending machines where 8 hours go in and flawless well-being drops out. But sleep gives the endocrine system a more stable rhythm to work with. So, while the room stays quiet and the sleeper remains still, the body's chemical messengers continue moving. Growth hormone rises during deep sleep. Cortisol waits for morning, appetite signals shift, blood sugar is managed, reproductive rhythms continue, repair signals move through tissue. The sleeping body is not merely resting beneath the skin. It is conducting a slow hormonal conversation, one that helps turn the dark hours into maintenance, balance, and preparation for waking life. The body's chemistry does not quiet down when sleep begins, it simply changes its conversation. Hormones move through the night, helping regulate growth, stress, appetite, and repair, while another great system listens and responds in its own way. The immune system, the body's network for defense, healing, and surveillance, is also deeply tied to sleep. It does not wait politely in the corner until morning. It is active, communicating, adjusting, remembering, and sometimes strongly encouraging the rest of the body to lie down and stop pretending everything is fine. Sleep and immunity influence each other in both directions. Sleep helps support immune defense, and immune activity can change sleep. Anyone who has felt heavy, drowsy, and strangely willing to spend the day under a blanket during an infection has experienced this connection. The tiredness of illness is not just weakness. It is often part of a coordinated biological response. The body is trying to manage energy, inflammation, temperature, and repair while dealing with a challenge. A key part of this communication involves cytokines. Cytokines are signaling proteins used by immune cells, and also by other cells, to send messages during inflammation, infection, injury, and repair. They help immune cells coordinate their behavior, much like a chemical messaging system. Some cytokines promote inflammation, some help calm it, and many have different effects depending on timing, location, and context. Biology enjoys complexity. It rarely sends one simple text when a group chat with confusing notifications will do. Two cytokines especially relevant to sleep are interleukin-1 and tumor necrosis factor. Both are involved in immune signaling and inflammation, and both have been studied in relation to sleep regulation. They can influence the brain and contribute to changes in sleepiness, deep sleep, and the body's response to infection. This does not mean they are simply sleep chemicals. They are immune messengers with many roles. But they help show that sleep is partly shaped by the immune system, not just by tiredness or the clock. The researcher James Kruger has been an important figure in the study of cytokines and sleep regulation. His work helped develop the understanding that substances produced by the immune system can influence sleep, especially non-rapid eye movement sleep. This matters because it means sleep is not sealed away from the body's defense systems. The brain is listening to immune signals, and those signals can help shift the body into a state that supports recovery. When the body detects infection, immune cells release cytokines and other inflammatory signals. These signals can affect the brain, changing mood, appetite, energy, attention, and sleepiness. This collection of changes is sometimes called sickness behavior. It can include fatigue, social withdrawal, reduced appetite, aching, fever, and a strong desire to rest. Although it feels unpleasant, it is not meaningless. It may help conserve energy and reduce risky behavior while the immune system does its work. From the body's point of view, running errands during an active infection is not always the best use of resources, even if the to-do list feels very persuasive. Fever is another example of coordinated defense. When the immune system detects certain threats, it can signal the brain to raise the body's temperature set point. The hypothalamus helps regulate this process. A higher temperature can make conditions less favorable for some pathogens and can influence immune activity. Fever is not simply the body overheating by accident. It is often a controlled response, although high or prolonged fever can be dangerous and should be taken seriously. The basic principle is that illness changes the body's priorities, and sleepiness is often part of that shift. Sleep also helps the immune system learn. One of the most impressive features of immunity is immune memory, the ability to respond more effectively to a threat that has been encountered before. This is why vaccinations work. A vaccine introduces the immune system to a harmless or controlled version, fragment, or instruction related to a pathogen, allowing immune cells to prepare without the full danger of the disease itself. Later, if the real threat appears, the immune system can respond more quickly and precisely. Sleep appears to support aspects of this learning process. Studies have found that sleep after vaccination can influence the strength of some immune responses, including antibody production. Antibodies are proteins made by B cells that help recognize specific targets. T cells also play essential roles in coordinating immune responses and destroying infected cells. Sleep may help support the communication and organization needed for these responses to develop well. This should be kept balanced. Sleep does not make anyone invincible. A good night's sleep cannot guarantee that a person will not catch an infection, and poor sleep does not instantly erase the immune system. The immune system is resilient and layered, shaped by genetics, age, nutrition, stress, prior infections, vaccination, medication, underlying health, and many other factors. But sleep is one of the conditions that helps immune defense work more effectively. It gives the body a better setting for coordination. There is also a daily rhythm to immunity. Immune cells do not behave identically at every hour. Some immune functions follow circadian patterns, influenced by hormones such as cortisol and melatonin, by body temperature, by feeding times, and by the sleep-wake cycle. Cortisol, which tends to rise toward morning, can influence inflammation and immune activity. Melatonin, associated with biological night, also interacts with immune signaling in complex ways. The sleeping body is therefore not defended by a separate immune machine operating in isolation. It is defended by a system woven into the same timing network as hormones, metabolism, temperature, and the nervous system. This is why poor sleep can have such wide effects. When sleep is shortened or fragmented repeatedly, inflammatory markers may shift, immune responses may become less well regulated, and the body may become more vulnerable to certain infections. At the same time, too much or poorly regulated inflammation can disturb sleep, creating a loop where the body's defense signals and rest signals interfere with one another. The goal is not simply a stronger immune system, as if the best defense were always more intensity. The goal is a well-regulated immune system, responsive when needed, calm when possible, and not firing alarms because a leaf brushed against the window. Inside the sleeping body, immune cells continue their patrol. Cytokines carry messages. The brain receives signals from the body. Fever, fatigue, and sleepiness can arise as part of defense. Immune memory is shaped by careful communication between cells. Hormones help set the timing, and brain circuits help adjust the state of the whole organism. So sleep is not only for the mind, and not only for muscles or dreams. It is also part of the body's defense strategy. In the quiet hours, the immune system works with the brain and endocrine system, not as a separate army, but as part of one living network. The sleeper may feel still, but beneath that stillness, the body is listening for danger, repairing small disturbances, remembering old enemies, and keeping watch through the night. Every day the body is gently warned by being alive, not dramatically most of the time, just steadily. Muscles contract and relax, joints absorb pressure, skin stretches and bends, tendons and ligaments transmit force. Tiny stresses pass through tissues with every step, every reach, every climb of the stairs, every workout, every bit of lifting, walking, typing, standing, and sitting in a chair that somehow claims to be ergonomic while feeling personally hostile. By night, the body has a chance to shift some of its resources toward repair. Sleep does not rebuild the body by magic, and it does not erase every strain from the day. but it supports many of the conditions that make physical recovery possible. Hormone rhythms change, protein synthesis continues, inflammation is regulated, blood flow supports tissue maintenance. The nervous system lowers some of the demands of waking life. The body is still active, but it is no longer busy holding posture, reacting to the world, coordinating movement, and constantly adjusting itself to the demands of daytime. Skeletal muscle is one of the clearest places to see this. Skeletal muscles are the muscles attached to bones, allowing movement, balance, breathing, posture, and force. During ordinary daily life, muscle fibers experience small amounts of mechanical stress. Exercise can increase this stress, especially resistance training, running, climbing, or any movement that asks muscles to work harder than usual. This does not mean exercise is damaging in a bad sense. It means the body is being challenged, and challenge is one of the ways tissues adapt. After movement and exercise, muscles need to repair and remodel. Tiny disruptions can occur in muscle fibers and surrounding structures. The body responds with inflammation, immune activity, increased blood flow, and cellular repair. Amino acids, the building blocks of proteins, are used to help rebuild and maintain muscle tissue. Protein synthesis is the process by which cells assemble new proteins, and it is essential for recovery, adaptation, and ordinary maintenance. Even without intense exercise, muscle proteins are constantly being broken down and rebuilt as part of normal life. Sleep supports this process partly through hormone rhythms. Growth hormone, released especially during deep sleep, helps support tissue maintenance and protein synthesis. It does not act like a simple repair spell, because the body is not a fairy tale, and muscles are sadly not renovated by moonlight alone. But growth hormone is part of a wider chemical environment that favors recovery. Testosterone, cortisol, insulin, thyroid hormones, and other signals also influence how tissues use energy, build proteins, control inflammation, and maintain structure. Deep sleep is often associated with physical restoration because it is a state in which the body's outward demands are reduced, and certain repair-related signals become more prominent. Heart rate and blood pressure may settle, breathing becomes more regular. The nervous system leans more toward rest and recovery. The body is not spending energy on walking, speaking, decision-making, or pretending to look normal during a video call. Instead, more attention can be given to internal maintenance. Blood flow is also important. Blood delivers oxygen, glucose, amino acids, hormones, and immune cells to tissues. It also carries away carbon dioxide and metabolic byproducts. During sleep, blood flow patterns change across the body and brain, helping support the different needs of organs and tissues. Muscles do not simply lie there like inactive rope. They remain living tissue, supplied by blood vessels, influenced by nerves, and constantly maintained by cells. Inflammation plays a careful role in this repair process. Inflammation is often spoken about as if it is always bad, but that is too simple. Acute inflammation is one of the body's normal responses to stress, injury, infection, and tissue repair. It helps bring immune cells and signaling molecules to areas that need attention. The problem is not inflammation itself, but inflammation that is excessive, prolonged, or poorly regulated. Recovery depends on inflammation being useful without becoming too noisy. The immune system needs to arrive, do its work, and avoid turning a minor repair job into a committee meeting that lasts 3 weeks. This links physical repair closely with the immune system. Immune cells help clear damaged material, coordinate inflammation, and release signals that influence rebuilding. Cytokines, the signaling, proteins involved in immune communication, can affect sleep and tissue repair. Hormones influence immune activity. Sleep influences both. The sleeping body is therefore not repairing muscles in isolation. It is coordinating immune signaling, endocrine rhythms, blood flow, cellular metabolism, and nervous system activity. Tendons and ligaments also undergo maintenance, though they tend to repair more slowly than muscle. Tendons connect muscles to bones, while ligaments connect bones to other bones. Both are made largely of collagen-rich connective tissue. They have less blood supply than muscle, which is one reason injuries to tendons and ligaments can take longer to heal. Sleep supports the general conditions for repair, but tendon and ligament recovery also depends on appropriate loading, nutrition, time, age, genetics, circulation, and the severity of any injury. Connective tissue throughout the body is constantly maintained. Fascia, cartilage, skin, blood vessel walls, and the structural framework around organs all rely on proteins such as collagen and elastin. Collagen provides strength and structure. Elastin provides flexibility and recoil. These tissues do not rebuild overnight in a dramatic way. Their maintenance is gradual, steady, and influenced by many factors. Sleep is one part of the environment that allows these slower repairs to continue properly. Fibroblasts are especially important here. Fibroblasts are cells found in connective tissue that produce collagen and other components of the extracellular matrix. The extracellular matrix is the structural material around cells, helping tissues hold their shape and mechanical strength. When tissue is injured or stressed, fibroblasts help rebuild and remodel this matrix. They are not glamorous cells. They do not get the dramatic reputation of neurons or immune cells. But without fibroblasts, the body would have serious difficulty holding itself together, which is a fairly important job. Skin repair also belongs to this wider story. The skin is a barrier, an immune organ, a temperature regulator, and a constantly renewing surface. During sleep, changes in blood flow, hormones, immune activity, and cellular repair may support the maintenance of this barrier. Small daily insults from sunlight, friction, dryness, shaving, pollution, and ordinary movement all require ongoing repair. Sleep alone cannot determine skin health, but poor sleep can make the body's repair environment less stable. Adequate total sleep matters because tissue repair is not confined to one tiny slice of the night. Deep sleep may provide especially supportive conditions, but the full sleep period allows cycles of hormonal release, immune regulation, nervous system settling, and energy management. Short or fragmented sleep can reduce the time spent in restorative stages and disrupt the rhythms that help coordinate repair. Still, sleep should not be described as a magical repair button. A person cannot sleep away a serious injury, an inadequate diet, an overloaded training routine, or a medical condition that needs proper care. Recovery also depends on protein intake, overall nutrition, hydration, circulation, movement, rest, genetics, age, and the type of tissue involved. Sleep is not everything, but it is one of the foundations that allows everything else to work more smoothly. Inside the sleeping body, repair is quiet and distributed. Muscle fibers are maintained, proteins are assembled, inflammatory signals are adjusted. Fibroblasts help tend connective tissue. Blood carries supplies. Hormones change the chemical background. Immune cells assist with clearing and rebuilding. The body does not wake up brand new, because biology prefers slow maintenance over dramatic renovation. But through the night, it works patiently on the tiny repairs that make another day of movement possible. Even when the body appears completely still, life is still moving. The chest rises, the heart beats. Blood flows through arteries, veins, and tiny capillaries. Oxygen enters the lungs, carbon dioxide leaves, and cells across the body continue their quiet exchange with the blood. Sleep may reduce outward movement, but it never removes the body's need for motion. The motion simply becomes internal, automatic, and beautifully easy to overlook. Breathing and heartbeat continue during sleep because they are controlled mostly below conscious awareness. A person does not need to remember to breathe all night, which is fortunate because the sleeping mind already has enough to manage with dreams about missing trains and kitchens that have somehow become forests. The body relies on automatic control systems that keep air moving and blood circulating without requiring deliberate thought. At the centre of this control is the brainstem, the ancient and essential part of the brain that connects the higher brain with the spinal cord. Two brainstem regions are especially important for breathing and sleep-related control: the medulla oblongata and the pons. The medulla oblongata helps regulate the basic rhythm of breathing, heart rate, blood pressure, and other vital functions. The pons helps shape breathing patterns and is also involved in sleep, dreaming, and the transitions between different sleep states. The brainstem listens constantly to the body's chemistry. It responds to oxygen and carbon dioxide levels in the blood, especially the level of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is not merely waste floating around until the lungs politely remove it. It is one of the body's main signals for adjusting breathing. When carbon dioxide rises, the blood becomes slightly more acidic, and specialized sensors help signal the brainstem to increase breathing. When carbon dioxide is kept in balance, breathing can remain steady and efficient. Oxygen is also monitored, especially by sensors in the carotid bodies near the arteries in the neck and in the aortic bodies near the heart. These sensors help detect low oxygen levels and send signals that influence breathing. During ordinary sleep, this monitoring continues quietly in the background. The sleeping person may be unaware of it, but the body is continually checking its own gases, like a careful engineer wandering through a building at night, making sure all the valves are behaving themselves. The heartbeat is also automatically regulated. The heart has its own internal pacemaker, a cluster of specialized cells called the sinoatrial node, which helps generate the rhythm of the heartbeat. But the rate and force of the heartbeat are adjusted by the autonomic nervous system. This is the part of the nervous system that controls many involuntary functions, including heart rate, blood pressure, digestion, sweating, and pupil size. The autonomic nervous system has two main branches that matter here. The sympathetic nervous system helps prepare the body for action. It can raise heart rate, increase blood pressure, and mobilize energy. The parasympathetic nervous system supports rest, digestion, recovery, and energy conservation. During restful sleep, the parasympathetic nervous system generally becomes more influential. Heart rate often slows. Blood pressure may fall. The cardiovascular system moves into a calmer rhythm, not because it has stopped working, but because the demands of waking life have eased. This settling is one reason sleep is important for cardiovascular health. During the day, the heart and blood vessels constantly respond to posture, movement, stress, meals, temperature, emotion, and activity. At night, especially during stable, non-rapid eye movement sleep, there is often a period of reduced cardiovascular strain. The body gets a quieter stretch of time in which heart rate and blood pressure can settle into lower patterns. It is not a full holiday for the heart, because the heart never gets one of those, but it is a change in workload. Breathing also changes across sleep stages. During deep, non-rapid eye movement sleep, breathing often becomes slower, steadier, and more regular. The brain is less responsive to the outer world, muscles are more relaxed, and the body's internal rhythms can become more stable. This steadiness fits with the broader character of deep sleep, when brain waves become slower and many body systems shift toward restoration. During rapid eye movement sleep, breathing can become more irregular. This is the sleep stage most associated with vivid dreaming, variable heart rate, rapid eye movements, and temporary inhibition of many voluntary muscles. The brain is more active in certain ways, and the body's regulation becomes more uneven. Breaths may become shallower or more variable. Heart rate may rise and fall. Blood pressure can fluctuate. The sleeping body is still controlled, but it is not as smooth as it often is during deep sleep. This variation helps show that sleep is not one simple condition. The heart and lungs do not behave identically all night. They shift with the stages of sleep, with brain activity, with muscle tone, with dreaming, and with the balance of the autonomic nervous system. The same sleeping body may spend part of the night in calm, steady, deep sleep, and another part moving through the more irregular rhythms of rapid eye movement sleep. One important example of disrupted breathing during sleep is sleep apnea. Sleep apnea refers to repeated pauses or reductions in breathing during sleep. The most common form is obstructive sleep apnea, in which the upper airway becomes partly or fully blocked as throat muscles relax. When breathing is interrupted, oxygen levels can fall and carbon dioxide can rise. The brain may briefly wake the body enough to reopen the airway, often without the person fully remembering it in the morning. These repeated interruptions can fragment sleep. Someone with sleep apnea may spend enough hours in bed and still wake unrefreshed because the night has been repeatedly disturbed. The condition can also place strain on the cardiovascular system, as oxygen levels, blood pressure, and stress responses fluctuate through the night. Sleep apnea is not just loud snoring, although snoring can be one clue. It is a medical condition that can affect sleep quality, oxygen balance, and long-term health, and it is one reason sleep medicine pays such close attention to breathing. The lungs themselves are remarkable in their quiet efficiency. Inside them are millions of tiny air sacs called alveoli. These sacs are surrounded by capillaries, where oxygen moves into the blood and carbon dioxide moves out. The exchange happens across extremely thin surfaces, allowing the body to refresh the blood with each breath. Even during sleep, this exchange continues again and again, supplying oxygen to the brain, heart, muscles, liver, kidneys, skin, and every living cell that depends on it. Blood carries that oxygen mainly through hemoglobin, a protein inside red blood cells. Hemoglobin binds oxygen in the lungs and releases it in tissues where it is needed. At the same time, carbon dioxide produced by cellular metabolism is carried back toward the lungs, where it can be breathed out. This simple-sounding exchange is one of the foundations of life. Breathe in, deliver, collect, breathe out. Softly repeated, all through the night. Physical repair depends on this hidden movement. Muscles cannot maintain themselves without oxygen and nutrients. Immune cells cannot coordinate properly without blood flow and chemical signals. Hormones cannot reach their targets unless circulation continues. Waste products cannot be removed unless fluids keep moving. Even deep stillness relies on circulation, ventilation, and exchange. So the sleeping body is not motionless in any true biological sense. It is full of gentle motion. The diaphragm contracts and relaxes. The ribs shift. Air travels through the nose, throat, windpipe, bronchi, and into the lungs. The heart sends blood outward and receives it back again. The brainstem listens to carbon dioxide, oxygen, pressure, rhythm, and sleep stage. The autonomic nervous system adjusts the balance between action and rest. From the outside, sleep may look like quiet surrender. From the inside, it is controlled continuity. The body does not forget to breathe. The heart does not pause its work. The blood does not stop its long red journey through the dark. Even in the deepest rest, the sleeping body is still moving, still exchanging, still keeping every cell connected to the simple, steady rhythm of life. As the heart continues its quiet rhythm and the lungs keep exchanging gases with the darkened room, another part of the sleeping body begins to change in a subtler way. The body cools, not dramatically, and not because it is failing to keep itself warm, but because temperature is part of sleep's timing. Rest is not only something the brain enters, it is something the whole body gradually leans into, partly by releasing heat. Human body temperature follows a circadian rhythm. It rises and falls across the day in a predictable pattern, guided by the body's internal clock. During the daytime, core body temperature tends to be higher, supporting alertness, movement, digestion, and activity. In the evening and during the night, core body temperature usually dips. This nighttime drop is one of the body's sleep-supporting signals. It helps create the internal conditions in which sleep can begin and remain stable. Core body temperature means the temperature of the body's inner tissues, including the organs of the chest, abdomen, and brain. Skin temperature is different. The skin is the body's outer surface, exposed to the air, bedding, clothing, and the room around it. These two temperatures are related, but they do not behave in exactly the same way. In fact, one of the odd little paradoxes of falling asleep is that parts of the skin may warm up while the body's core cools down. This happens because heat moves. The body can release internal heat by sending more warm blood toward the skin, especially the hands, feet, fingers, and toes. Blood vessels near the surface widen, a process called vasodilation. When these vessels widen, more warm blood flows through the skin, allowing heat to escape into the surrounding environment. The core cools, while the skin, particularly the extremities, may feel warmer. This is why warm hands and feet can be associated with sleep onset. They are not necessarily a sign that the whole body is heating up. They may be a sign that the body is successfully moving heat outward. It is rather like opening a small window in a warm room. The room itself begins to cool because heat is being allowed to leave. The hands and feet are some of the body's most useful little windows, although they are also very good at becoming mysteriously cold at the least convenient moment. A key brain region involved in this process is the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus sits deep in the brain and helps regulate many essential functions, including hunger, thirst, hormone release, body temperature, and circadian timing. Within the hypothalamus, different groups of neurons help monitor and adjust the body's internal state. The hypothalamus receives information from the body and helps coordinate responses that conserve heat, release heat, or shift the body towards sleep and waking. Thermoregulation is the process by which the body maintains its temperature within a narrow and useful range. Human cells work best when internal temperature is carefully controlled. Too hot, and proteins can become unstable. Too cold, and chemical reactions slow down. The body therefore uses many mechanisms to manage heat, including changes in blood vessel width, sweating, shivering, posture, behavior, and hormone activity. During sleep, these systems continue to work, but their balance changes with sleep stage and circadian timing. Sweating is one way the body loses heat. When sweat evaporates from the skin, it carries heat away. This can be useful when the body's too warm, but sweating at night can also disturb sleep if it becomes excessive or uncomfortable. A person may wake feeling damp, too hot, or tangled in bedding that now seems to have become a small tropical climate. Sweat is not always a problem by itself, but when temperature regulation is repeatedly disrupted, sleep can become lighter and more fragmented. Shivering is the opposite kind of response. When the body's too cold, muscles contract rapidly to generate heat. Shivering can help defend core temperature, but it is not exactly sleep-friendly. The body can sleep more comfortably when it does not need to fight the environment too hard. A cold room, thin bedding, damp clothes, or uncovered feet can all make the body work harder to maintain warmth. The sleeper may wake, curl up, pull the blanket closer, or perform the traditional half-asleep search for the missing corner of the duvet, a task known to science only as mild nocturnal archaeology. Bedding and room temperature matter, because sleep involves a physical exchange of heat with the surroundings. The body does not exist in isolation. It is always giving off heat, absorbing heat, and responding to the air and surfaces around it. A room that is too warm can make it harder for the body to release heat and maintain the normal nighttime dip in core temperature. A room that is too cold can trigger protective responses that disrupt comfort and sleep continuity. The ideal conditions vary between people, but the principle is the same. Sleep becomes easier when the body can regulate temperature without constant effort. Nighttime awakenings often have a temperature component. Someone may wake because they are too hot under heavy bedding, too cold after the covers have slipped away, or uncomfortable because the room temperature changed during the night. Hormonal changes, illness, stress, alcohol, certain medications, menopause, and fever can all influence nighttime temperature regulation. Sleep is delicate because it depends on so many systems lining up reasonably well. Temperature is one of those systems, and it can quietly decide whether the night feels smooth or restless. Different sleep stages also involve different patterns of temperature control. During non-rapid eye movement sleep, the body can still regulate temperature fairly effectively. During rapid eye movement sleep, thermoregulation becomes less responsive in some ways. The body's more dependent on the surrounding environment, and the usual responses to heat and cold can be altered. This is another reason the sleeping body is not in one simple state all night. Its ability to manage heat changes as the brain moves through different stages. Temperature connects closely to breathing and circulation. Blood flow carries heat from the body's core to the skin. The heart and blood vessels help distribute warmth, while the lungs release heat and moisture with every breath. Breathing out is not only gas exchange, it also carries water vapor and warmth from the body into the air. The body's internal climate is therefore shaped by the same systems that move oxygen, carbon dioxide, hormones, immune signals, and nutrients through the night. Even the simple act of curling up under a blanket belongs to thermoregulation. Behavior is one of the body's temperature tools. Before sleep, a person may seek warmth, adjust clothing, open a window, turn over the pillow, or move one foot outside the blanket with the precision of an ancient ritual. These small actions help the body find a thermal balance where sleep can continue without interruption. So, as the body sleeps, it is not only breathing and circulating, it is exchanging heat with the world. The core temperature dips, blood vessels in the skin widen or narrow, the hypothalamus monitors and adjusts, hands and feet may warm as heat moves outward. Sweat and shivering remain available if the balance shifts too far. Bedding, clothing, and room temperature become part of the biological story. The sleeping body is quiet, but it is not sealed away. It is in constant conversation with the air around it, the fabric touching it, and the warmth it must release to rest well. Sleep is shaped by chemistry, memory, hormones, and immune signals, but also by something wonderfully physical. The slow movement of heat from the center of the body toward the edges and then gently out into the night. Even as body temperature falls and the sleeping person lies still beneath the quiet surface of the night, the body is still using energy. Sleep may look like a low power state, and in many ways it is. The muscles are not carrying the body through the world. The eyes are not constantly scanning. The conscious mind is not deliberately planning, speaking, deciding, reacting, or wondering whether one more episode is a reasonable idea. But beneath that outward calm, the basic work of life continues. The brain still needs fuel, the heart still contracts, the liver still manages chemistry, the kidneys still filter the blood, the immune system still patrols and communicates, the digestive system still performs its slower maintenance. Muscles still need oxygen, nutrients, and repair. Cells throughout the body continue producing proteins, balancing fluids, moving ions, recycling molecules, and keeping themselves alive. Sleep reduces some demands, but it does not remove the cost of being a living organism. Metabolism is the name for the chemical activity that keeps the body running. It includes the processes that release energy from food, store fuel for later, build new molecules, break down old ones, and maintain the conditions cells need to survive. During sleep, metabolism does not stop. It shifts. The body's not eating, moving much, or actively responding to the outside world, so the pattern of fuel use changes. Energy is managed more quietly, but it is managed constantly. Glucose is one of the body's central fuels. It is a simple sugar carried in the blood and used by many cells for energy. The brain depends heavily on glucose under ordinary conditions, and because the brain never truly switches off, blood glucose must be kept within a useful range through the night. Too little glucose can threaten brain function. Too much glucose, especially over long periods, can damage blood vessels and tissues. The body therefore works carefully to keep blood sugar steady, even while no food is being eaten. Two hormones are especially important in this balance: insulin and glucagon. Insulin is released by the pancreas, an organ that sits behind the stomach and plays a major role in digestion and blood sugar regulation. Insulin helps move glucose from the blood into cells, where it can be used for energy or stored. After a meal, when glucose rises in the blood, insulin helps guide that fuel into the body's tissues. It is one of the reasons a meal does not simply leave sugar drifting around in the bloodstream like unattended confetti. Glucagon also comes from the pancreas, but it has a different job. When food is not being eaten and blood glucose needs support, glucagon helps raise blood sugar by signaling the liver to release stored fuel. In simple terms, insulin helps store and use glucose when there is plenty available, while glucagon helps make glucose available when the body is between meals. During sleep, this balance becomes especially important because the body may go many hours without food while still needing a steady supply of energy. The liver is the great overnight manager in this story. During the day, after meals, the liver can store glucose in the form of glycogen. Glycogen is a branching storage molecule, rather like a compact reserve of glucose units packed away for later use. During the night, when no new food is arriving, the liver can break down glycogen and release glucose into the blood. This helps keep the brain and other organs supplied while the sleeper remains unaware of the whole excellent arrangement. If glycogen stores are lower, or if the body needs more glucose, the liver can also make glucose through a process called gluconeogenesis. This means creating glucose from non-carbohydrate sources, such as certain amino acids, lactate, and glycerol. The word is technical, but the idea is simple enough. The body has backup routes for maintaining fuel. It does not like leaving the brain without supplies. The brain is rather demanding, but given that it runs consciousness, memory, breathing control, dreams, and the occasional very strange thought at 3 a.m, perhaps it has earned some priority. Sleep also influences insulin sensitivity. Insulin sensitivity describes how responsive the body's cells are to insulin. When insulin sensitivity is higher, cells respond efficiently, and glucose can move from the blood into tissues more easily. When insulin sensitivity is reduced, the body may need more insulin to manage the same amount of glucose. Research in sleep medicine has shown that sleep restriction and sleep fragmentation can impair glucose regulation and reduce insulin sensitivity, at least temporarily, and repeated poor sleep may contribute to longer-term metabolic strain. The National Institutes of Health has supported and reported on research connecting insufficient sleep with metabolism, appetite regulation, blood sugar control, and long-term health risk. These relationships are complex because metabolism is influenced by diet, activity, genetics, stress, age, body composition, medications, illness, and many other factors. Sleep is not the only variable. but it is a meaningful one. When sleep is repeatedly shortened or badly disrupted, the body's fuel control systems may become less steady. Poor sleep can also affect appetite. Earlier, leptin and ghrelin appeared as hormones involved in fullness and hunger. Sleep loss may change these signals, but it can also affect brain regions involved in reward, impulse control, and food choices. When a person is sleep deprived, the body may seek quick energy, and the brain may become more drawn to calorie-dense foods. This is not a moral failure, it is biology under strain. A tired brain is not always at its most philosophical around biscuits. Metabolic balance is also linked to the circadian rhythm. The body handles food differently depending on timing. Eating late at night can interact with the body's natural rhythms in glucose control, digestion, body temperature, and hormone release. The same meal may have different effects depending on whether it is eaten during the biological day or biological night. This is one reason shift work and irregular schedules can be challenging for metabolic health. The body is not only asking what fuel is arriving, it is also asking when. Temperature and metabolism are closely connected. Producing energy creates heat, and controlling heat affects energy use. As the body cools into sleep, metabolic activity changes in many tissues. Lower nighttime core temperature fits with the broader move into rest, but the body still needs enough energy to keep the heart beating, the lungs breathing, the brain active, and cells alive. Sleep is therefore not an energy shutdown. It is a carefully managed low-activity state, with reduced outward demand and ongoing internal fuel control. Hormones help coordinate this state. Insulin, glucagon, cortisol, growth hormone, melatonin, thyroid hormones, and appetite signals all interact with sleep and metabolism. Cortisol usually begins rising toward morning, helping prepare the body to mobilize energy for waking. Growth hormone released during deep sleep influences tissue repair and fuel use. Melatonin helps signal biological night and can interact with metabolic timing. These signals do not act in isolation. They form a chemical network, keeping the sleeping body supplied without turning the night into a metabolic free-for-all. So, inside the sleeping body, energy is still being spent and carefully balanced. The brain consumes fuel while it dreams, sorts, and maintains itself. The liver releases glucose with quiet precision. The pancreas adjusts insulin and glucagon. The heart, kidneys, muscles, immune cells, and every living tissue continue their work. The outside body may seem still, but the inner economy remains open all night, softly lit, carefully stocked, and never quite closed. While the sleeping body manages blood sugar and keeps energy flowing through the night, another part of the system continues its own quiet work. The gut does not simply close for business when the eyes shut. Digestion usually slows and shifts during sleep, but the stomach, intestines, liver, pancreas, and the vast microbial world inside the digestive tract remain biologically active. The body may not be eating, chewing, swallowing, or deciding whether a second helping was a bold but worthwhile choice, but the digestive system is still maintaining itself. Digestion is not one single action. It is a long sequence of movements, secretions, chemical breakdown, absorption, immune surveillance, nerve signaling, and microbial activity. Food is broken down by stomach acid, digestive enzymes, bile, pancreatic secretions, and the movements of the gut wall. Nutrients pass through the lining of the small intestine into the blood or lymph. The liver processes many of those nutrients, storing some, transforming others, and helping manage the chemical balance of the body. The pancreas releases digestive enzymes into the small intestine and hormones such as insulin and glucagon into the blood. During sleep, this activity does not stop, but it changes. The digestive system is influenced by circadian biology, the autonomic nervous system, hormones, feeding times, and the state of the brain. In general, the body is not designed to do its heaviest digestive work at the same time that it is trying to settle into deep, stable rest. This is one reason a very large meal late at night can make sleep feel warmer, heavier, or more restless. The stomach and intestines may still be busy, while the rest of the body is trying to dim the lights. The gut has its own remarkable nerve network called the enteric nervous system. This network contains millions of nerve cells embedded in the walls of the digestive tract. It helps coordinate gut movement, enzyme secretion, blood flow, and communication with immune cells and microbes. The enteric nervous system is sometimes called the gut's own nervous system, not because it thinks in the same way the brain does, but because it can manage many digestive functions locally. It does not sit there composing poetry about lunch, as far as science can tell, but it is impressively independent. The enteric nervous system works closely with the autonomic nervous system. During restful sleep, parasympathetic activity often becomes more influential, supporting the body's quieter maintenance states. The digestive system is part of this shift. The gut continues moving material along through gentle waves of muscle contraction called peristalsis. It also performs cleaning patterns between meals, including migrating motor complexes, which help sweep residual material through the stomach and small intestine during fasting periods. These patterns are part of the digestive tract's housekeeping, and like many forms of housekeeping, they're easiest to appreciate when they have gone wrong. The gut microbiome adds another layer to the story. The microbiome is the community of bacteria, viruses, fungi, archaea, and other microbes that live in and on the body, especially in the large intestine. These microbes help break down certain fibers, produce short-chain fatty acids, interact with the immune system, influence the gut barrier, and take part in many chemical processes. They are not simply passengers. They are living members of the body's internal ecosystem. The microbiome also follows rhythms. Microbial activity can change across the day and night, influenced by feeding time, sleep timing, light exposure, hormones, immune signals, and the body's circadian rhythm. When meals arrive at regular times and sleep occurs at consistent times, the gut and its microbial residents receive a more predictable pattern. When sleep is disrupted, eating times become irregular, or the body is awake and eating during its biological night. These rhythms can become less stable. This does not mean the microbiome is fragile in a dramatic way. It is adaptable and resilient, but it is responsive. Shift work, jet lag, irregular sleep, late meals, and disturbed circadian timing can all influence digestion, metabolism, and microbial patterns. The gut is not separate from the body clock. It is one of the many places where the body's timing system becomes physical. Late eating can affect sleep in several ways. A heavy meal close to bedtime may keep the stomach fuller for longer, increase digestive activity, raise body temperature slightly, or make reflux more likely. Reflux happens when stomach's contents move back up toward the esophagus, sometimes causing burning, coughing, discomfort, or disturbed sleep. Lying flat can make reflux easier because gravity is no longer helping keep stomach contents down. The stomach is not being malicious. It is simply obeying physics with unfortunate enthusiasm. Alcohol can also disturb the digestive night. It may make some people feel sleepy at first, but it can fragment sleep later, affect rapid eye movement sleep, irritate the stomach, increase reflux in some people, and influence liver metabolism. The liver has to process alcohol, and that processing becomes part of the body's overnight workload. Again, this is not a moral lecture from the digestive system. It is just biochemistry, which tends to be very direct about consequences. Disrupted sleep timing can also affect digestion. When the body's awake at unusual hours, Eating at inconsistent times, or sleeping at different times each day, the gut receives mixed signals. The stomach, liver, pancreas, intestines, and microbiome all respond to timing cues. If those cues are scattered, digestion may feel less comfortable, appetite may shift, and metabolic regulation may become less smooth. Sleep and digestion are linked not only by what is eaten, but by when the body expects food and rest to happen. One of the most important communication routes between the gut and the brain is the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is a long cranial nerve that travels from the brainstem down through the neck and chest into the abdomen. It carries signals in both directions between the brain and organs such as the heart, lungs, stomach, intestines, liver, and pancreas. It is involved in digestion, heart rate, breathing, inflammation, and the body's rest-related states. Through the vagus nerve and other pathways, the brain receives information from the gut about stretch, nutrients, inflammation, and chemical signals. The brain also sends signals that influence gut movement, secretion, and blood flow. This is one reason stress can affect digestion, and digestion can affect comfort, mood, and rest. The body does not keep the mind upstairs and the gut downstairs with no communication between them. There is a very active internal telephone line, and sometimes the gut uses it with great confidence. The vagus nerve also links digestion with heart rate and breathing. During calmer states, increased parasympathetic activity through the vagus nerve can help slow heart rate and support digestion. This fits with the broader pattern of sleep as a coordinated whole-body state. The same shift that settles the heart and steadies breathing can influence the digestive tract. The body does not manage sleep in separate departments with no shared paperwork. It coordinates. This brings the sleeping gut back to metabolism. Overnight energy control is not only about blood sugar, insulin, glucagon, and the liver. It's also about the timing of digestion, the movement of nutrients, the activity of pancreatic hormones, the rhythm of the microbiome, and the communication between gut and brain. Food eaten during the day becomes part of the body's night. Some of it has been absorbed, stored, transformed, or released. Some of it is interacting with microbes. Some of it influences hormones, temperature, reflux, or comfort. So, inside the sleeping body, the digestive system remains quietly involved. The gut slows and shifts but does not disappear from the story. The liver manages fuel. The pancreas balances hormones and enzymes. The enteric nervous system coordinates movement. The microbiome follows its own living rhythms. The vagus nerve keeps the brain and body in conversation. Beneath the stillness of sleep, the body is not only dreaming, repairing, cooling, and circulating. It is also digesting the day, one chemical message and one microbial rhythm at a time. The work of sleep reaches all the way to the surface. While the gut continues its quiet rhythm, while the liver manages fuel, and while the brain and body exchange chemical signals through the night, the skin is also active. It may look still from the outside, but the skin is never simply a covering. It is living tissue, full of cells, blood vessels, nerves, immune activity, oils, water, proteins, and repair systems that keep the body separated from the world without cutting it off from the world entirely. Skin has a difficult job. It has to be strong enough to protect the body, flexible enough to bend and stretch, sensitive enough to detect touch, heat, cold, pressure, and pain, and organized enough to help manage temperature, fluid balance, and immune defense. It must keep too much water from escaping, stop many microbes and irritants from entering, and constantly renew itself while being exposed to sunlight, friction, pollution, shaving, soap, weather, fabrics, and whatever mysterious substance is living on the average phone screen. The skin is not passive wrapping. It is a living defensive boundary. Two major layers matter especially for this story: the epidermis and the dermis. The epidermis is the outer layer. It contains cells called keratinocytes, which gradually move upward as they mature, forming the protective outer barrier of the skin. This barrier helps reduce water loss and keeps many microbes, allergens, and irritants from getting into deeper tissues. The outermost part of the epidermis, called the stratum corneum, is made of flattened cells and lipids arranged like bricks and mortar. It may sound like a tiny wall, and in a way it is. A very soft, flexible, self-repairing wall that has to survive towels. Beneath the epidermis is the dermis. The dermis is thicker and richer in structure. It contains blood vessels, nerves, sweat glands, oil glands, hair follicles, immune cells, and the connective tissue proteins that help give skin its strength and shape. This is where collagen and elastin become especially important. Collagen is a strong structural protein that helps skin resist tearing and maintain firmness. Elastin is another protein that helps tissue stretch and return toward its original shape. Together, they help skin behave less like paper and more like living fabric. Collagen and elastin are influenced by many factors. Aging changes their production and organization. Sunlight, especially ultraviolet radiation, can damage collagen and elastin over time. Genetics affect how skin develops, repairs, pigments, wrinkles, and responds to stress. Nutrition matters because the body needs amino acids, vitamins, minerals, and energy to maintain tissue. Hormones affect oil production, hydration, inflammation, and repair. Sleep also belongs in this list, not as a magic beauty spell, but as part of the body's wider maintenance environment. During sleep, the skin continues barrier repair, immune surveillance, hydration regulation, and cellular renewal. Skin cells are constantly being produced and shed. The epidermis renews itself over time, with newer cells forming deeper down and older cells moving toward the surface. This renewal does not happen only at night, but the rhythms of the body influence how repair and renewal unfold. Circadian biology affects the skin, just as it affects the brain, liver, hormones, gut, and immune system. Nighttime changes in blood flow may help support repair at the body's surface. Blood carries oxygen, glucose, amino acids, hormones, immune cells, and other materials that tissues need. When circulation shifts during sleep, the skin remains part of that exchange. The same blood that supplies muscles and organs also helps maintain the surface of the body. Skin may seem like the edge of the person, but biologically it is deeply connected to everything beneath it. Inflammation also changes across the night. Inflammation is not always harmful. It is part of repair, immune defense, and tissue response. If the skin is irritated, scratched, sun-exposed, shaved, dry, or inflamed, immune cells and signaling molecules help coordinate what happens next. Cytokines and other immune signals can influence skin repair, while sleep influences immune regulation more broadly. A stable night of sleep can help the body maintain a calmer, more organized repair environment. A poor night can make the system feel more reactive, which may show up as increased sensitivity, dullness, redness, itchiness, or slower recovery in some people. Hormones play their part as well. Growth hormone, released especially during deep sleep, supports tissue maintenance and protein synthesis. Cortisol, which follows a daily rhythm, can influence inflammation, immune activity, and skin barrier function. Melatonin, best known for signaling biological night, also has antioxidant properties and interacts with circadian timing in tissues throughout the body. These hormones do not float around thinking specifically about skin care, which is probably for the best. But their rhythms help create the internal conditions in which skin repair can proceed. Hydration regulation is another quiet part of the sleeping skin. The skin barrier helps prevent excessive water loss from the body. This loss is called transepidermal water loss, meaning water passing from inside the body through the epidermis into the air. If the barrier is disrupted, water can escape more easily, and the skin may feel dry, tight, rough, or irritated. During the night, the skin continues managing this boundary. Room humidity, bedding, temperature, sweating, hydration status, and barrier health can all influence how comfortable the skin feels by morning. The skin is also home to its own microbiome. Bacteria, fungi, viruses, and other microbes live across the surface, especially in oily, moist, or folded areas. Most are harmless, and some help maintain a balanced skin environment. The skin immune system constantly monitors this microbial community, responding when needed while tolerating what belongs there. This is another reason the skin is not a simple cover. It is an ecosystem, an immune surface, and a communication zone between the body and the outside world. Sleep connects skin to digestion and metabolism in more ways than it first appears. Nutrients absorbed through the gut provide the building blocks for skin cells, collagen, and repair. The liver processes and distributes many of those nutrients. Blood sugar regulation affects energy supply. Hormones influence inflammation, oil production, and tissue maintenance. The immune system patrols both the gut and the skin. The microbiome exists in both places, different in composition but connected through immune and metabolic signaling. Nighttime maintenance reaches from the internal organs all the way to the visible surface. This does not mean that one good night of sleep erases wrinkles, reverses sun damage, or transforms the skin by morning. Skin appearance is shaped over years by ultraviolet exposure, age, genetics, health, nutrition, stress, hormones, environment, and care. Sleep is only one part of that wider picture, but it is a meaningful part. When sleep is steady, the skin is working within a body that is better regulated. When sleep is repeatedly disrupted, the signals that support repair, hydration, immunity, and inflammation can become less balanced. So, inside the sleeping body, repair is not hidden only in the brain, muscles, gut, or bloodstream. It reaches the surface. The epidermis maintains its barrier. The dermis supports blood flow, collagen, elastin, nerves, and glands. Immune cells keep watch. Water is held in. Microbes are managed. Hormones and nutrients arrive through the blood. The skin rests against the world while quietly defending the body from it, renewing itself in the dark, and reminding us that even the surface of sleep is alive. The sleeping body does not only repair tissues, it also changes how the body feels. Beneath the surface of the skin, inside muscles, around joints, along nerves, through the spinal cord, and within the brain itself, sleep helps regulate the way discomfort is detected, filtered, interpreted, and remembered. Pain is not just a message sent from one sore place to one listening brain. It is a whole nervous system event, shaped by tissue signals, immune activity, attention, emotion, memory, stress, and rest. This matters because the body is never completely silent. Even on an ordinary day, muscles produce tiny aches, joints send information about pressure and position, skin senses irritation, the gut stretches and contracts, and tissues report small changes in temperature, chemistry, and mechanical strain. Most of these signals never become strong conscious pain. The nervous system filters them, dampens them, ignores them, or turns them into vague background awareness. If every tiny signal became urgent, waking life would be impossible. It would be like trying to relax in a room where every object politely but constantly announces its own existence. At the beginning of many pain signals are nociceptors. Nociceptors are specialized sensory nerve endings that detect potentially harmful stimuli. They respond to things such as extreme heat, strong pressure, chemical irritation, inflammation, or tissue injury. They are found in the skin, muscles, joints, organs, and many other parts of the body. Their job is not to create pain directly, but to detect danger or possible damage and send warning signals toward the spinal cord and brain. Pain itself is produced by the nervous system. This is a crucial distinction. A sore knee, a cut finger, or an inflamed muscle can send signals, but the experience of pain is created when the brain interprets those signals in context. The brain considers the strength of the incoming information, the state of the tissues, past experience, emotional state, attention, expectation, fatigue, stress, and many other factors. Pain is real, but it is not a simple measurement of damage. Sometimes a small injury hurts sharply. Sometimes a serious injury hurts surprisingly little at first. The nervous system is not a camera. It is an interpreter, and sometimes quite a dramatic one. Sleep influences that interpretation. When sleep is steady and sufficient, the nervous system is generally better able to regulate sensory information. Pain thresholds may be more stable. Inflammatory signals may be better controlled. Emotional reactivity may soften. The brain's ability to place discomfort into context may improve. This does not mean sleep erases pain, and it certainly does not mean pain is all in the head, a phrase that manages to be both unhelpful and scientifically clumsy. Pain is in the nervous system, and the nervous system includes the whole living body. Insufficient sleep can lower pain tolerance. After a poor night, sensations that might normally be manageable can feel sharper, more irritating, or harder to ignore. A stiff neck may seem louder. A headache may feel more intrusive. A sore muscle may become annoyingly persuasive. Research in sleep and pain has repeatedly shown that sleep loss can increase sensitivity to painful stimuli and reduce the brain's ability to dampen pain signals. In simple terms, tiredness can turn up the volume on the body. Pain can also disturb sleep, creating a difficult feedback loop. Discomfort makes it harder to fall asleep or stay asleep. Fragmented sleep then makes the nervous system more sensitive the next day. That increased sensitivity can make pain feel worse, which can disturb sleep again. This loop can be especially difficult in chronic pain conditions, where the nervous system, immune system, stress pathways, and sleep patterns may all influence one another over time. Inflammation plays a major role in this story. When tissues are stressed, injured, infected, or irritated, immune cells release inflammatory mediators. These include cytokines, prostaglandins, histamine, bradykinin, and other chemical signals. Some of these molecules can make nociceptors more sensitive, meaning the nerve endings respond more easily than they otherwise would. This is useful when the body needs protection. If an ankle is injured, increased sensitivity can encourage rest and prevent further damage. But if inflammatory signaling becomes excessive or prolonged, the discomfort can become harder to regulate. The spinal cord is not just a passive cable carrying pain signals upward. It is an active processing center. Signals from nociceptors enter the spinal cord, where they interact with other nerve cells. Some signals are amplified. Some are dampened. Some are influenced by descending pathways from the brain, which can either inhibit or increase pain transmission. This is one reason mood, fear, attention, and expectation can change how pain feels. The spinal cord is part of the conversation, not merely the wiring. A careful concept here is central sensitization. Central sensitization is a state in which the nervous system becomes more responsive to signals, so that pain can become stronger, more widespread, or more persistent than expected from tissue findings alone. It can involve changes in the spinal cord and brain, making the system more likely to interpret incoming information as threatening. This does not mean pain is imaginary. It means the alarm system has become more sensitive. A normal alarm should respond to smoke. A sensitized alarm may begin shrieking because someone made toast 3 rooms away. Poor sleep, stress, repeated pain, inflammation, and emotional strain can all contribute to nervous system sensitivity. Again, this should be framed carefully. Not every ache is central sensitization, and not every bad night creates a major pain problem. The body is adaptable and usually settles back toward balance. But when sleep disruption and pain reinforce each other over time, the nervous system can become less efficient at turning the volume down. Sleep also affects the emotional side of pain. Pain is not only a sensation, it has a feeling attached to it. Unpleasantness, worry, frustration, threat, exhaustion. The brain regions involved in emotion, attention, and body awareness help shape that experience. When rapid eye movement, sleep, and deep sleep are disrupted, emotional regulation can suffer. A person may feel more reactive, more anxious, or less able to cope with discomfort. The same physical sensation can feel more manageable after rest, and more overwhelming after a broken night. The connection to skin, muscles, and immunity is direct. Skin irritation depends on barrier function, immune signaling, nerve endings, and inflammation. Muscle soreness depends on tissue stress, repair, inflammatory mediators, blood flow, and nervous system interpretation. Immune signals can influence sleepiness and pain sensitivity. Hormones such as cortisol can affect inflammation and stress responses. The body does not separate repair from sensation. It repairs tissues while also deciding how strongly those tissues should be felt. This is why sleep helps regulate not just the work of recovery, but the awareness of recovery. The body may need to protect a sore area, reduce inflammation, rebuild tissue, and adjust movement. Pain can be a useful guide when it is proportionate and temporary. It encourages care. It says, in its own very firm language, perhaps do not keep poking that. But when sleep is poor, the guide can become louder, less precise, and more tiring. During sleep, the nervous system has a chance to recalibrate. Sensory pathways settle into different rhythms. Inflammatory signals shift. The spinal cord and brain continue processing information from the body. Immune cells communicate. Hormones change. The emotional tone of discomfort may soften. Not every pain fades overnight, and not every condition is solved by rest. But sleep gives the body a better chance to regulate both damage and the feeling of damage. So, while the skin renews, muscles recover, and immune cells keep watch, the sleeping body also tends to sensation itself. It adjusts the alarm system, it filters the background noise, it helps the brain decide what needs attention and what can safely quiet down. Beneath the stillness of sleep, the body is not only repairing its tissues, it is also gently resetting the way those tissues speak. Dreams can feel full of movement. In them, a person may run through a city, climb a hill, swim through dark water, reach for a falling object, turn to face a voice, or sprint away from something that seems terribly important until morning arrives and reveals it was, somehow, a very determined goose. Yet through most of these dream movements, the body remains almost still. The mind travels, but the limbs stay quiet. This stillness is not accidental. During rapid eye movement sleep, the brain creates a special protective state called rapid eye movement atonia. Atonia means a loss of muscle tone. In this case, it refers to the temporary suppression of most voluntary muscle activity during the stage of sleep, most strongly associated with vivid dreaming. The body is not paralyzed in a frightening waking sense. It is held in a carefully controlled sleep state, where large movements are mostly prevented while the dreaming brain remains active. This is one of the more remarkable examples of sleep as active maintenance. The body does not simply become still because it is tired. The nervous system has to create that stillness. It has to keep the heart beating, keep breathing going, allow the eyes to move, permit small twitches, and yet stop the arms and legs from fully joining in with whatever strange drama the dreaming mind has assembled. It is a delicate balance. Enough activity to keep life running, enough inhibition to keep the sleeper from trying to physically escape a dream corridor that probably was not built to modern safety standards. Several parts of the nervous system help produce this state. The pons, a region in the brainstem, plays an important role in rapid eye movement sleep. It helps generate and coordinate features of this stage, including eye movements, changes in breathing, and signals that contribute to muscle inhibition. The medulla, another brainstem region, is also involved in controlling vital functions and helping regulate the signals that travel downward toward the spinal cord. The spinal cord then becomes part of the quieting process. Voluntary movement normally depends on motor neurons, the nerve cells that send signals from the spinal cord to muscles. When someone decides to move while awake, brain regions involved in planning and movement send signals down through the nervous system, eventually activating motor neurons. These motor neurons tell muscles to contract. During rapid eye movement sleep, inhibitory signals reduce the activity of many of these motor neurons. The muscles are still alive and supplied with blood, but they are not receiving the usual command to act. This means the dream can unfold without becoming full-body theatre. The brain may generate the experience of running, but the legs do not run. The dreamer may imagine throwing, pushing, climbing, or reaching, but the arms mostly stay where they are. Without this protective inhibition, vivid dreams could become physically dangerous. A sleeping person might strike a bedside table, leap from the bed, or perform an ambitious but poorly rehearsed dramatic gesture into a lamp. Rapid eye movement atonia is one of the reasons a strange inner world can play out while the outer body remains safe. Michel Jouvet's research helped clarify this connection between rapid eye movement sleep, dreaming-related brain activity, and muscle inhibition. In animal studies, Jouvet and other researchers showed that changes in brainstem mechanisms could alter the usual suppression of movement during rapid eye movement sleep. This helped reveal that atonia is not a vague side effect of sleep, but a controlled nervous system process. The brainstem is not merely keeping the body alive during dreaming, it is helping separate imagined action from actual action. Still, rapid eye movement atonia is not total silence. Small twitches can happen, fingers may move slightly, facial muscles may flicker, a person may shift or make small sounds. The eyes themselves move rapidly beneath the eyelids, which is why the sleep stage has its name. These eye movements are part of rapid eye movement sleep and are not suppressed in the same way as large voluntary muscle movements. They are one of the visible signs that the sleeping brain is in a different kind of state. Breathing can also change during rapid eye movement sleep. It may become more irregular, with variations in depth and rhythm. Heart rate and blood pressure can also become more variable. This fits with the broader character of dreaming sleep. The brain is active, the body is protected from large movement, and automatic systems continue adjusting in the background. The sleeper is not simply still, the sleeper is being held in a managed contradiction, mentally active, physically inhibited, biologically alert enough to maintain life, and yet deeply removed from the waking world. The contrast with pain and sensation is interesting. Earlier, the nervous system appeared as an interpreter of bodily signals, adjusting how discomfort is processed and how strongly the body speaks to the brain. Here, the nervous system is doing something equally careful with movement. It is deciding which signals should be allowed through and which should be softened. During dreaming sleep, the brain may create intense inner experiences, but the motor system is deliberately restrained. Sleep is not passive stillness, it is controlled stillness. There are conditions that show what can happen when this protective system does not work normally. Rapid eye movement sleep behavior disorder is a sleep disorder in which the usual muscle inhibition of rapid eye movement sleep is reduced or absent. People with this condition may act out their dreams, sometimes talking, shouting, punching, kicking, reaching, or moving in ways that match dream content. This can lead to injury for the sleeper or for a bed partner. Rapid eye movement sleep behavior disorder is important medically and should be taken seriously. It can occur in different contexts, including certain medications, sleep disruption, or neurological conditions. In some people, especially older adults, it can be associated with the later development of neurodegenerative diseases involving abnormal alpha-synuclein, such as Parkinson's disease or dementia with Lewy bodies. That does not mean every unusual movement in sleep points to something severe. People can twitch, shift, mumble, or move briefly during sleep for many reasons. But persistent dream enactment is one example of how important the normal protective system is. The existence of rapid eye movement sleep behavior disorder also reminds us that ordinary sleep is more actively controlled than it seems. Most nights, the body quietly performs a sophisticated act of protection. It lets dreams happen without letting them fully take over the muscles. It allows the eyes to move but keeps the limbs calm. It permits changes in breathing and heart rhythm while maintaining the basic stability needed for rest. It draws a boundary between the inner theatre and the outer room. That boundary is one of sleep's quiet miracles. The dreaming brain can produce fear, delight, confusion, memory, impossible landscapes, and emotional stories that make perfect sense until they are examined in daylight. But the body does not have to obey them. It can remain tucked beneath a blanket while the mind runs, flies, argues, searches, or wanders through places that do not exist. Inside the sleeping body, stillness is therefore not emptiness. It is protection. The pons, medulla, spinal cord, and motor neurons help maintain a state in which vivid inner experience does not become uncontrolled outer movement. The nervous system does not only decide how the body feels, it also decides when the body should stay safely quiet. And through that careful inhibition, the sleeping brain protects the body from its own private theatre, allowing the night's strangest scenes to pass without needing the furniture to get involved. The sleeping body depends on rhythm. It depends on stages arriving in the right order, deep sleep having enough time to unfold, rapid eye movement, sleep returning in longer stretches, hormones rising and falling with the night, and the brain moving through its private cycles without being pulled back to the surface too often. Sleep is not only about being unconscious, it is about being allowed to travel through the night with enough continuity for the body's hidden work to happen properly. This is why fragmented sleep can feel so unsatisfying. A person may spend 8 hours in bed and still wake feeling as though they have been lightly dragged across the night rather than carried through it. The clock may say there was enough time, but the body may have been repeatedly interrupted. Each awakening, even a brief one, can disturb the architecture of sleep. The sleeper may not remember every interruption, but the brain and body still had to respond. Normal sleep already includes small shifts and brief awakenings. The body turns over. Sounds are noticed and forgotten. The brain rises close to wakefulness, then sinks again. This is ordinary. But when awakenings become frequent, longer, or linked to breathing problems, stress, pain, noise, temperature, alcohol, anxiety, or irregular schedules, the smooth shape of the night begins to break apart. The body may struggle to remain in deep sleep long enough, or to move naturally into rapid eye movement sleep at the right times. Deep sleep is especially vulnerable to disruption. Because it tends to occur more strongly in the earlier part of the night, anything that repeatedly interrupts the first few hours of sleep can reduce the body's access to slow-wave sleep. This matters because deep sleep is associated with physical restoration, growth hormone release, immune regulation, memory consolidation, and the slow brain rhythms linked with the brain's cleaning processes. When deep sleep is broken, the body may still rest, but some of the deeper maintenance can become less efficient. Rapid eye movement sleep can also be disturbed. This stage often becomes longer toward morning, so early waking, irregular schedules, alcohol, stress, and certain sleep disorders can reduce or fragment it. Rapid eye movement sleep is linked with dreaming, emotional processing, associative thinking, and aspects of memory integration. When it's repeatedly interrupted, the brain may have less opportunity to process emotional material smoothly. The person may wake feeling mentally busy, emotionally raw, or as if the night technically happened but did not quite do its job. Memory consolidation can suffer as well. The brain does not simply need sleep in a general sense. It benefits from the right sequence of sleep stages. Slow-wave sleep, sleep spindles, hippocampal reactivation, cortical rhythms, and rapid eye movement sleep all seem to contribute in different ways to stabilizing, reorganizing, and integrating memories. If sleep is repeatedly broken, the brain's overnight sorting becomes less orderly. It is a little like trying to organize a library while someone keeps turning the lights on, ringing a bell, and asking where the extension cord is. Hormone rhythms are also sensitive to disrupted sleep. Growth hormone release, cortisol timing, melatonin signaling, insulin sensitivity, appetite hormones, and reproductive hormones can all be influenced by sleep duration, sleep quality, and circadian timing. A single poor night is not a disaster. The body is built to handle variation, but repeated disruption can push chemical rhythms away from their usual pattern, affecting energy, hunger, stress response, tissue repair, and metabolic balance. The immune system is part of the same story. Sleep helps support immune memory, inflammatory regulation, and the communication between immune cells and the brain. Fragmented sleep may alter inflammatory signals and make the body less efficient at coordinating defense and repair. It does not mean the immune system switches off. It keeps working, as immune systems are admirably stubborn. But it may have to work in a less stable internal environment. Daytime alertness is often the most obvious casualty. When sleep is interrupted, the brain may struggle with attention, reaction time, mood regulation, decision-making, and memory. The person may feel foggy, irritable, heavy, or oddly hungry. The world may seem louder than usual. Small problems may feel larger. The body's awake, but some of the systems that should have been refreshed overnight have not had enough uninterrupted time to settle. Sleep debt is the accumulating effect of insufficient sleep. If the body repeatedly gets less sleep than it needs, the pressure does not simply vanish. It builds. Recovery is possible, and the brain often responds to sleep loss by increasing deep sleep when it finally gets the chance. But catching up is not always as simple as one long night. Some functions may recover quickly, while others take longer. A weekend lie-in may help, but it may not fully repair a long pattern of short, irregular, or fragmented sleep. There are many ways sleep can be disrupted. Insomnia can make it difficult to fall asleep, stay asleep, or return to sleep after waking. Shift work can force sleep and wakefulness into conflict with the body's circadian rhythm. Jet lag occurs when the body's internal clock is misaligned with the local day and night cycle. Sleep apnea can repeatedly interrupt breathing, oxygen levels, and sleep depth. Stress can keep the nervous system too alert. Pain can pull attention back to the body again and again. irregular routines can leave the brain unsure when night is supposed to begin. This is why sleep is treated as a public health issue by organizations such as the World Health Organization and by sleep medicine groups around the world. Poor sleep is not only a private inconvenience. Across populations, insufficient or disrupted sleep is linked with accidents, reduced performance, metabolic strain, cardiovascular risk, mental health difficulties, and lower quality of life. That does not mean every bad night should become a source of fear. Worrying about sleep can, rather unfairly, make sleep harder. But it does mean sleep deserves respect as a basic biological need. The body's sleeping work depends on more than the simple fact of lying down with closed eyes. It depends on continuity, timing, depth, and structure. The brain needs enough time to cycle. The immune system needs coordination. Hormones need rhythm. The body needs chances for repair, cooling, fuel control, dreaming, memory sorting, fluid movement, and sensory recalibration. When sleep is interrupted, the body does not give up. It tries again. It returns to sleep, rebuilds its rhythm, and makes the best use of the time available. But the smoother the night, the more easily the hidden work can unfold. Sleep is not just a dark space between one day and another. It is a carefully arranged biological process, and like many careful things, it works best when it is allowed to continue without being constantly disturbed. Morning does not usually arrive all at once. It gathers. A little light reaches the eyes. Sounds begin to separate themselves from the background. The body shifts under the covers. The mind rises slowly from whatever depth it occupied, bringing back a name, a room, a date, a faint memory of a dream, or sometimes the very strong feeling that the alarm clock has committed a personal offence. Waking is not simply the opposite of falling asleep. It is another transition, another carefully managed change of state. The body has spent the night moving through cycles of lighter sleep, deep sleep, and rapid eye movement sleep. It has sorted memories, softened emotional edges, cleared waste from the brain, adjusted hormone rhythms, supported immune function, repaired tissues, controlled breathing and circulation, lowered and managed temperature, balanced blood sugar, coordinated digestion, maintained the skin barrier, regulated pain sensitivity, and protected the body from acting out most dreams. By morning, the hidden work has not made the body perfect. Biology does not do perfection, but it has helped restore enough order for waking life to begin again. The first moments after waking can feel strangely uneven. Sometimes a person wakes clear and alert, as if the mind has gently opened a window. Other times, waking feels heavy, slow, and confusing. This temporary grogginess is called sleep inertia. It can happen when the brain is pulled from sleep before it has fully shifted into wakefulness, and it may be especially noticeable after waking from deep sleep. During sleep inertia, attention, memory, reaction time, and decision-making may feel sluggish for a short while. The person is technically awake, but some inner systems are still politely finishing their overnight paperwork. Sleep inertia is one reason waking can feel so different depending on timing. If awakening happens from lighter sleep, the transition may feel smoother. If it happens during deep, slow wave sleep, the brain may need more time to reactivate fully. This does not mean deep sleep is bad. Deep sleep is valuable. It simply means being pulled out of it suddenly can feel like being asked a complicated question while still halfway underwater. Several biological signals help the body move from sleep into waking. Cortisol, released by the adrenal glands, usually begins rising toward morning as part of its daily rhythm. Cortisol helps mobilize energy, support blood pressure, and prepare the body for activity. It is often described as a stress hormone, but in the morning it is also part of normal awakening. In the right rhythm, cortisol is less like an alarm siren and more like the body quietly opening the curtains from the inside. Body temperature also begins to rise after its nighttime dip. During the night, core body temperature usually falls, helping support sleep. Toward morning, the circadian rhythm nudges temperature upward again. This rise helps the body become more alert and ready for movement. Warmth, metabolism, circulation, and nervous system activation all begin shifting toward the waking state. Light exposure is especially important. When morning light enters the eyes, specialized light-sensitive cells in the retina send signals to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the brain's master circadian clock. This helps reinforce the timing of day and night. Morning light can suppress melatonin, strengthen wakefulness, and help align the body's internal rhythms with the outside world. The eyes may only notice that the room is brighter, but the brain receives that brightness as timing information. Day has arrived. The system begins to adjust. Blood pressure and heart rate also change. During restful sleep, parasympathetic activity often helps the cardiovascular system settle. As waking approaches, sympathetic activity increases slightly, and the body prepares for posture, movement, and alertness. Blood pressure rises from its nighttime levels. The heart becomes ready for the demands of standing, walking, speaking, digesting breakfast, and pretending to be emotionally prepared for emails. Brain activation changes too. The cortex becomes more responsive to the outside world. Sensory processing sharpens. The prefrontal cortex involved in planning, self-control, judgment, and working memory gradually returns to fuller operation. The thalamus, which helps relay sensory information, supports the renewed flow of signals from the world into awareness. The waking brain begins rebuilding the familiar sense of being here, in this room, in this body, at this point in the day. A good night of sleep often feels almost invisible. That is one of the strange things about it. When sleep has done its work well, the clearest sign may not be dramatic bliss or sparkling energy. It may simply be steadiness. Thoughts arrive more easily, emotions feel less jagged, hunger is easier to understand, pain may be less loud, the body may feel more coordinated. The face in the mirror may look a little less like it has been negotiating with a haunted lampshade. Good maintenance often announces itself by not needing to announce itself. This is true across the whole body. Memory may feel more accessible because the hippocampus and cortex have spent the night strengthening and reorganizing information. Emotion may feel more manageable because dreaming and rapid eye movement sleep have helped process associations and feeling. The brain may function more clearly because cerebrospinal fluid movement and lymphatic clearance have helped refresh its internal environment. Hormones may follow a steadier rhythm. Immune signaling may be better regulated. Muscles and connective tissues may have had time for repair. Blood sugar may have been kept stable by the liver, pancreas, insulin, and glucagon. The gut and microbiome may have continued their slower rhythms. The skin may have maintained its barrier. Pain pathways may have recalibrated. Breathing and circulation may have carried oxygen, fuel, heat, and chemical messages through every sleeping hour. All of this work is easy to miss because it happens without conscious supervision. No one lies awake directing the hippocampus, instructing the liver, managing cytokines, widening blood vessels in the feet, or telling the pons to keep dream movements politely contained. The body does these things because it is a living system shaped by deep biological rhythms. Sleep is one of the ways that system keeps itself organized. So what happens inside the body while sleeping is not a blank gap in consciousness. It is a full-scale biological maintenance program. It is memory sorting, emotional processing, brain cleaning, immune coordination, hormone timing, fuel management, tissue repair, temperature control, breathing regulation, circulation, digestion, skin renewal, pain modulation, and motor protection, all unfolding beneath the quiet appearance of rest. By morning, the body has not been absent. It has been busy in its own dark, patient way. Sleep is the body's quiet method of returning itself toward balance, not perfectly, not permanently, but enough to meet the next day with a little more order than it would have had without it. The world may see someone simply waking up, but inside, a whole night of hidden work has just brought life gently back to the surface. So what happens inside your body while you sleep? The calm answer is that almost everything continues, but in a different rhythm. The body is not switched off. It is cleaning the brain, sorting memories, regulating hormones, supporting immunity, repairing tissues, controlling temperature, maintaining breathing and circulation, balancing metabolism, and quietly preparing the mind and body for another day. Sleep begins long before the eyes close, with sleep pressure rising through adenosine and the circadian rhythm keeping time through the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Then the night unfolds in stages, moving through light sleep, deep sleep, and rapid eye movement sleep, each with its own pattern of brain activity, muscle tone, breathing, and repair. Dreams arrive as part of this changing landscape, sometimes strange, sometimes emotional, sometimes stitched together from memory, imagination, and the brain's unusual midnight logic. Inside the sleeping brain, the hippocampus and cerebral cortex help stabilize memories, while the glymphatic system appears to support the clearance of waste through the movement of cerebrospinal fluid. The endocrine system changes its rhythm too, with growth hormone, cortisol, melatonin, insulin, glucagon, leptin, ghrelin, and other chemical messengers helping coordinate repair, energy use, appetite, stress, and waking. The immune system keeps watch through cytokines, inflammatory signals, immune memory, and the body's careful response to infection and injury. The rest of the body is just as involved. Muscles and connective tissues continue their slow maintenance. Breathing and heart rate remain under automatic control, guided by the brainstem and autonomic nervous system. Body temperature dips and rises with the night's rhythm, helped by blood flow, heat release, bedding, and the quiet exchange between skin and air. Metabolism continues, blood sugar is managed, the liver releases stored fuel, and the gut, pancreas, microbiome, and vagus nerve keep their own slower conversation going. Even the skin repairs its barrier. Pain sensitivity can shift. The nervous system adjusts how strongly the body's signals are felt. During rapid eye movement sleep, atonia helps stop the body from acting out most dreams, gently separating the inner theatre from the outer room. And when sleep is interrupted, the whole pattern can become less smooth, reminding us that sleep is not only about duration, but about timing, continuity, and structure. Sleep is not lost time. It is one of the body's most important biological rhythms, a deeply active state that waking life depends on. Beneath the stillness, the sleeping body remains quietly alive, quietly busy, and quietly protective, tending to the ordinary miracle of waking up again.